Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreon, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So, a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Will Brax, Melby Styles, Troy Shuker, Bose Nail, Joseph Pizarro, Samson, Maris, Mobile Mac 777, Neo the One, Lost Cat FE, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Mike, Muted, Dick Earth Skeptic, NA Literalist, Maria Nealands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Rob H, The Real Gabster, Windrider, Liam Nedrick Jr., Abraham Mohammed, Naibai, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic936, Life is Short, Fireball X, Texas Mike, Edwin Johnson, Kirsten Smith, and David Wayne Foster. So another huge, massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Also, link below this video, there is a link to get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. With that, I'm going to hand over to whoever is in Google and Discord so you can enjoy their conversation while I set up for today's live show.
Anthony.
Just yes or no, Neil. Have you got it fixed yet?
No, not yet. He put a tailpipe on, but I'm doing it today. So anyway, but no exhaust. It's exhausting.
Oh, Bob.
I'm not bringing it up today, but you should be pissed off. He treats you like a second grader.
Well, it's
second
because
grade experiment.
Yeah, but it's not about the experiment, is it? It's about the application of scientific method that's the difference. Yeah, it's not that complicated, the experiment. But if you accept that the thing that causes the acceleration is the thing that's manipulated by the observer, then it means that you can't invoke gravity instead. And that's the point. Because he wants to invoke gravity just as keen as a ball earther does. Well, that's why he doesn't like the test. Well, fucking.
Can you
So
not
does
swear?
Zachary.
Don't swear. Try not to swear.
Oh.
Yes, hold your peace.
You get so many.
Morning from
Did you watch?
I use up the majority.
10th, did you watch Bob on Globebusters last night?
No, I don't watch Globebusters.
I watched it this morning. It started at, I think it was about 11 o'clock for us, and I knew it was going to be hours, and I thought, I'm not watching this now. I'm going to watch this in the morning, you know, when I freshly woke up and I'm not tired. So watched it this morning,
Wait a
and
second.
I was like...
Wait a
Globebusters
second.
on
You didn't
Thursday?
watch it 10th?
Yes, there was a
No.
Globebusters special
How were you in a
report.
chat with us?
Hold on.
Oh, I followed your guys' chat, but I didn't watch it.
Guys, just hold on 1 second. Yes, Righteous, there was a special report. I didn't watch it either, but I know that, yes, there was a show that was live today. Yesterday.
Okay.
Well, my chat comes up on my phone whenever someone chats. So when I saw it come up, I just followed it and piped in every now and then with a few good puns, and that's about it.
Actually, it was Wednesday. I think they just played it yesterday.
So what was it about?
Dialect acceleration.
Incoherent diatribe.
Is this
He was
why you're
trying to
Mr.
get
No
He was trying to
audience.
give-
Just ask, guys, from this point on, please can you just play this straight? Please?
He was basically arguing the case that you assert, which is the incoherent dielectric acceleration point. And to be fair, his position's changed from the last time I heard him talking about this. The last time I heard him talking about it, he was talking about magnetism, not static charge potential. So I did the video yesterday that was based on magnetism because that's what I thought his position was. And obviously I was a little bit ignorant, and his position's not that. It's changed over time, because the last time I remember him talking about this, he was saying that electricity and magnetism are fundamentally or essentially the same thing. And that was what I thought his position was. I didn't realize he's changed his position since. So yesterday's video was a little bit premature. Well, ignorant, not premature, but ignorant. But I got to find out what his position was. And last night he makes 3 catastrophic fundamental errors. One is that he creates a reification fallacy of his own model. So that within his own context, his own confines, in his own pen, he prowls about like the lion on the prairie. And in that model, it makes sense. But if that model doesn't match reality, then he's reifying, and that's exactly what he does last night. The second thing he makes that's a major error is that he puts in they acknowledge that there is positively charged ions up in the atmosphere, and everybody accepts that. That's not contentious. But he ascribes the Earth as a negative value. Well, that is contentious because the Earth's not negative. It's neutrally charged. It will conduct. It will take current, but it's not an attraction to positive energy, because otherwise we wouldn't get the buildup of static charge. Static charge is trapped.
That's not fully true. That it can develop. But that's what he's just talking about. It can develop one, but that doesn't mean that it just is one. Is that what you're... I don't know if that isn't what you've just said, though. You've just said, no, it isn't, which is a bit too emphatic.
I was going to say about lightning afterwards. I was going to say that we do see discharge.
Okay, I haven't listened. I haven't watched the show. I shouldn't be premature. My bad. Carry on.
So the second one he does is he charges the Earth with a negative charge, which means that the positive charges in the atmosphere would then flow down to Earth. But that doesn't happen, because if it did happen, we wouldn't have buildup of static charge, because static charge is the buildup of charged particles with nowhere to go. That's why it's called static. But because he puts a negative charge to it, that's where he gets the flow from. But the Earth's not negatively charged; it's neutral.
Hold on.
It can be in electrical storms.
Hold on, please be more specific. I'm sorry, I'm drilling you, and I haven't watched. What flow?
The energy flow from the positively charged ions in the atmo down to Earth does happen in an electrical storm, but we see it in the form of lightning. Happy?
No. We're talking about a downward bias that's being asserted here. Are you asserting that this bias is because of a continual stream, a downward flow, as opposed to lightning?
No, that's Bob.
Something else?
No, that's Bob's position.
I know it's Bob's position. I'm asking you to clarify his position. I know it must be painful.
Yes, that's what he says.
A bit less concise. So, is the position that there is a continual downward flow which gives us this downward bias? Is that the assertion?
Yes, that's his position.
Okay, I can debunk that with a kettle.
Well, it's debunkable with a plug. I mean, I used the plug in my response video that I'm doing now, which I'm going to premiere right after the show. But basically, in the UK, we've got a 3-pin plug. We've got the live, or the hot wire that you guys refer to. We've got the neutral, negative, the return, the other one that you guys have too. But we've also got Earth. Now, the point is that the Earth one is there basically to absorb a lot of the shock if there's a short circuit. But it's not an attractive pin, because the Earth and the live are next to each other in the plug. So if it was attractive, the plug would become a spark plug, but it's not. It's the safety net that allows electricity to pass through that pin in the event of a flaw in the wiring or whatever, and it's to take the shock away from the bloke that's doing the mistake. So essentially, what it does is it absorbs the bulk of the current, so that the bloke doesn't do that, but it doesn't attract. So because it can conduct, doesn't mean it's negatively charged. It just means it's capable of carrying a charge. It will conduct, but it doesn't induct and it doesn't attract, which is what Bob's put into it in his video. So within his model that he's reifying, he's wrongly ascribed a negative charge to the Earth. But in doing that, he creates Bob's paradox, which is he's then got to argue that gas molecules will go down in a vacuum chamber, which we all know that does not happen. So because he then has that paradox...
Look, hold on. I've got no issue with someone describing that as a negative direction, right, when there is a flow, because that would be accurate. There's nothing wrong with that as an electrical description. And as I've said many times, I'm not going to dispute this from an electrical standpoint. There's nothing wrong with anything that I can hear being described until we get to the downward bias that has so far been ascribed to a flow based on the positive in the sky flowing to the negative on the ground, giving us a downward bias. Is that not correct in terms of my summary so far? Because all of the electrical stuff I couldn't care less about. None of it is relevant until you ascribe downward bias.
Well, the problem is that Earth's not negative, so it's not attracting the positive.
Anthony, please don't just repeat it all. I don't care. All I'm interested in is how this is linked by, and I know who by now, Ken Wheeler, to an assertion that there is no gravity. It's actually this incoherent dielectric acceleration. Gravity's nonsense. Mass attracting mass nonsense. But it's actually this downward bias that we have, and that's explained by incoherent dielectric acceleration. In other words, a substitution. Their gravity's wrong. My quote-unquote gravity, which I'm not calling gravity because gravity's nonsense, according to Ken Wheeler, is a downward bias by way of incoherent dielectric acceleration. Now, the because of incoherent dielectric acceleration is non sequitur, because we don't have a downward bias. So all of the electrical stuff, I couldn't care less about it. I literally don't care. I'm not interested in it. It doesn't prove anything or disprove anything. All I want to get to the nub of is the assertion that we've got a downward bias when we haven't. The description of why my ascribing explosive forces that we can experience, like lightning by comparison, and ascribing them to a downward bias would be equally fallacious. Now, does that mean that we disagree with explosive forces or lightning forces or electrical force? No. Just means that the assumption of a downward bias, which this is being used in conjunction to prove, is not there in the first instance. That's all that matters.
Yeah, I do agree. The bit that you're missing is that if the Earth was negatively charged rather than neutral, there would be the flow that he's talking about. That's the bit that you're missing.
There is that flow. You can see it in lightning, right? Just go around in the same. I've pleaded with you not to cover this bit again, but you're insistent. That's non-sequitur.
That's his position.
It doesn't matter. I could argue about ghosts, and until the ghosts are starting to be ascribed to downward vectors, I couldn't care less about the ghosts.
That's his position, Nathan. I don't know what to say to you.
Okay. So do we have a downward bias?
You need to go listen to the video.
Okay, maybe you can I'll rephrase it. Maybe someone who understands this stuff as well as Anthony or better. Does this prove downward bias? The stuff that you're going to detail
No, it disproves it. It disproves it, Nathan.
Disproves the downward bias?
Yes.
Enlighten me.
Because the Earth's not negatively charged. It doesn't attract the molecules, otherwise static charge would not build up.
And if I show that it has got a negative, that suddenly means that we do have downward bias. It's non sequitur.
But we do have the negatively charged at times. We do have lightning.
Sequitur. I'm not getting through to him. I'm gonna give up.
I don't see how it's non sequitur.
Do we have a downward bias? Do we have a downward bias?
No.
So it is non sequitur then.
Them,
so,
yes.
so the directionality of the electricity in this instance is non sequitur then.
But within Bob's model that he's created, it is.
Right. Do you subscribe to Thrice 8 Hermes, Anthony?
No.
Please go and watch his video on men and their models. How men really like to find a man to follow. Man, I just mean person. Yeah, they like to find a person to follow and ascribe themselves to their way of thinking. And those ways of thinking can be accurately described as their models. So what you're saying is there's a dude out there that's got himself a little model. And he's got people that want to follow him. And they want to also ascribe themselves to this model as an explanation for the world in all its complexity. Now, if they want to do that, right, let them. Right? Me, I'm all for personal, individual, critical thought. You know, type of research that lets you down a rabbit hole where you find there is no beginning to the story that's being told. You know, what would you call it? Primary source. You know, that is something that people can do off their own back. But they don't want to do that. They're lazy. This guy over here has done it for me. Check out his model. I can ascribe myself to that model. That's a way I can think. That's a paradigm I can get behind. Well, more fool them. We're here telling you, no, you don't need models. They're pseudoscience. The map is not the terrain.
That is the point that I was getting to. Because his model works, if you have a negative ground, then his model works. But that doesn't match
what does
real
work
world.
mean? Love it. What does work mean, Anthony? What's work?
It would match real world, but it doesn't match
stuff,
real world.
That's not work. A mirror is not work. What's work? Doing stuff.
Yeah,
right?
doing something.
Models don't do stuff. They don't physically have any attributable effects in our nature. So, no, they don't do any work. Nature does work, and you can try and describe that work with a model. And then you can draw correlations with the model. but the model isn't the terrain, doesn't have any causal influence, it doesn't do any work.
But within his model parameters, it does work.
Don't care.
Yeah.
May I say something here? Yeah.
I'd say something after you.
Yeah, go ahead, but let me finish. I understand what Nathan's asking for. Can you show to us in nature right now this downward force? And the answer from Anthony is no. And Nathan says,
No.
okay, then I'm not worried about it. But then
I
Anthony
agree.
comes and says, hang on. And then you come and say, but Bob in his model, if it works, does work. And Nathan says, well, it doesn't matter. It's not reality. So who cares?
We're both we all agree. We're all saying the same thing. Just Nathan's
That's it.
premature. That's all.
My turn.
Oh, God, what? What? Premature about what?
You've jumped down my throat before I got to the end of it, because essentially within his model parameters, it may well work, but in the real world, it doesn't work. So he's basically reifying in exactly the same way that the ball earthers do when they ascribe a downwards force. Instead of it being from the sky pushing down, it's from the ground pulling up. So from the ground to like gravity, that's what they do. So within their model, it might make sense. It might work. You can calculate it. But does it work in real world?
There's going to be plenty of clown shows out there that are going to do the same thing. Right? And when they cross our path, then we'll deal with them as we have done. But for any pretender clown muppets like Thunderfoot or Ken Wheeler, or in this instance, Bob
Nodell. Bob Nodell becomes one of them.
I know you've got a thing for Bob. It's okay.
No.
Chill.
He's guilty. He makes the same fallacious argument as Thunderfoot. So
Fine.
if Thunderfoot's a clown,
I get it. I know. I get it. And I'm listing him in the list. There's a very simple description for anybody who wants to claim a downward bias, right? Does gas go down? It has mass. No. Right. So therefore, all you have to ask them, in this instance, somebody would just need to ask Bob, in your examples, what happens to gas? Does it pool on the bottom?
Nathan,
You're being premature. He said there's few exceptions, and gas is one of them. Helium is
no,
one
he
of
said
them.
there was no exceptions. He said there was one.
He said it last night.
The other guy said it. The Zachary guy said it.
No, Bob said that. Bob said that the gas does go down and go boom, boom. That's what
He did say that, yeah. Savage asked him.
Hello, everyone.
Savage asked him, he said, does everything go up, Bob? Does everything go down, Bob? And he says, yeah. He says, does gas go down? And then Bob said, well, helium's the lightest known gas that we've got. I forgot about hydrogen, but minor point. He said that pools on the floor in the basement of the vacuum chamber. And I was like, he's become Thunderfoot. He's been pushed into a paradox that he can't get out of.
Okay, but this device right here crushes the relative density disequilibrium argument. Absolutely crushes it, because there is nothing that you can claim here where anything is going from a less dense to more dense medium. It's in a vacuum. It's all the same medium, and yet there is still a downward acceleration, and that downward acceleration does change from place to place, and even sometimes in the same place. Right.
So Bob, does that, at the risk of sounding stupid, and I'm feeling pretty stupid at the moment, but does when you say everything goes down, do you mean gases as well inside this device?
Even gases will, yes, because if you have helium, and helium is the least dense gas we know, right? Mm-hmm. But even helium has to be, if it's going to rise, it has to float up on something, right? Well, if there's nothing to float up on, then what's it going to do? It's going to sit on the bottom.
Sit on the bottom. That's really interesting. I didn't know that. And do they have these sort of devices, bigger devices than these? Because I'm just thinking about Zach's balls.
What? What is it with these people
Now,
with balls?
I don't know whether John did that intentionally or inadvertently, but he basically sliced off Bob's neck there. Bob was put into a position of stupidity. So it's like, Bob, you're gonna have to accept that gas pressure will bounce around in the vacuum. It doesn't pool on the floor. But will he do that? We'll have to see.
That is the most preposterous thing I ever heard. So he's asserting that you put helium inside a vacuum. Well, we've got plenty of demonstrations of that. People putting helium inside a container, that would be a balloon, inside another container that has the gas evacuated. And when the balloon pops, the gas fills the space equally in all directions. It does not pool on the floor. What an absolute absurd nonsense to back up a claim that we've got a downward bias. Yeah, basically, you're right, Anthony. Bob, Ken, and Thunderfoot are now all in the same group where they have to assert that gas goes down, go boom boom. No, that is incorrect. Gas expands in all directions, all vectors, not down with a bias. These people are clowns.
But if we reel this back a couple of steps, this is all based on his downward bias perception, which was based on Earth being negative, which was based on his reification of creating his own little domain called his model. Well, isn't that the whole problem of everything that happens in the world when people start modeling shit out and not applying it in real world?
I was thinking maybe I should suggest that he tries this, but then I'm thinking, well, this is absurd. Why would I say, Bob, go and release some helium into a vacuum and watch what happens? It does not pool on the floor because there's nothing else for it to push off. It just expands in all directions. That's what gas does in all instances. And it's not because the gas around it in our air that we're breathing on a day-to-day basis. It's not because that air is being pulled down to push the helium up. None of the gas around the helium is going down, go boom boom, to force the disequilibrium. That is not what is occurring. Gas doesn't go down, go boom boom. It expands in all directions. So me saying, well, go and try your little, what is it, thought experiment? Because it certainly isn't reality when you say, well, in a vacuum chamber, you release helium and there's nothing else for it to press on, so it's going to be going down, go boom boom. No, fundamentally incorrect. It's absurd. I'm very disappointed. Bob, what gives? You think gas goes down, go boom boom? You want to tie yourself to the same nonsense as Thunderfoot? Okay, that's a real disappointment, but that's the situation we now find ourselves in, isn't it? How disappointing.
What's now really interesting is we can actually use the Rumpus, who knows that that doesn't happen. So we can use Rumpus as our hostile witness, which is unusual because we don't normally get to use Rumpus as a hostile witness. Well, we can use Rumpus to basically correct Bob and see what Bob now does, because is Bob going to want to be Thunderfoot? No. Is he going to want to concede and admit that that doesn't happen? No. So what is he going to do? He's caught between a rock and a hard place with nowhere to go, but he has to go somewhere. So what's he going to do? Come on, Bob.
There's just a hard place. Being wrong. It's tough life. We've had to be wrong in the past. Bob, you're wrong. Now, I'm not saying this because I want to have a jab. I know we've got a history. This isn't that, right? This is you being wrong. Gas does not go down, go boom boom like bouncy balls poured into a fish tank. If you've got a vacated space and you fill it with gas, it just expands in all directions to fill the availability of volume. That's what gas does. So you're wrong. It's as simple as that.
So just to play devil's advocate for a sec, I can see Bob saying, well, sulfur hexafluoride fills in a fish tank, Nathan.
No, it doesn't. It expands in all directions to fill the availability of volume it has to fill. It's a gas. Doesn't matter how inert it is. It's a gas. So sulfur hexafluoride behaves like any other gas. It expands in all directions. It's proportional to time, how long that will take. It's described with entropy, the second law of thermodynamics. Gas fills space. That's what it does. Doesn't go down, go boom boom.
Why are people trying to change gas behavior? It's not going to happen. I don't get it.
Because they want a downward bias. That's why. Well, you haven't got one. We've debunked it. You don't have a downward bias. Things go up, right? You look above your head, what do you see? You see clouds. I can debunk this complete nonsense of a bias downward with a kettle. It's absurd. What are you doing, people? Hello?
He actually claimed that gases can be dictated. That weren't his exact words, but this is exactly what he meant. Can be dictated by like electromagnetism, whatever else. And what he's speaking about there is, and I know what he's speaking about, is plasma, because he showed a load of plasma being affected by electromagnetism demonstrations after the debate I had with Whitsitt when he was on Whitsitt's show. And Bob has said to me that gases privately. He said that gases. But gases are affected and can be controlled with electromagnetism and this kind of stuff. It's like, no, plasma, ionized gas, plasma, not gas. That's complete. Only liquid gas. Gases as liquids sometimes can be, and gases as plasmas, not gas in gas state. That doesn't happen, Bob.
Sorry, were you talking to me? I stepped away for a second.
I was,
No, no.
I was making a big statement. I waited for you to say, yeah, Brian, but not.
Hey, can I just pipe
Can't
in real
leave once
quick?
the show goes live, so I have to get drinks and stuff.
Well, let me just pipe in real quick. If you have a vacuum chamber, there's absolutely no gas in it. If you introduce a balloon with helium, then the helium is within the chamber of the balloon. When that balloon pops, you no longer have a vacuum chamber because there's gas in it. Now, if you take out that helium out of that vacuum chamber once the balloon pops, do you have any gas in that vacuum chamber?
If you take
No.
the helium back out, no.
No. So what
What's
is
the
this?
point?
What is this whole point of the gases go down to the bottom in the vacuum chamber?
They don't.
Well, then you don't have a vacuum chamber anymore.
No, well, that implies gas at the bottom, vacuum at the top. No, that's not how gas behaves, I'm afraid. High pressure to low
Right.
pressure, the gas will equalise in the chamber. That's what gas does. I mean, this is really basic stuff. But basically, when you've got a downward bias, you lead yourself onto a road where you have to assert the gas goes down. It doesn't.
Right. You're right. And I agree with all that. But at the same point, you no longer have a vacuum chamber because you still have gas in it.
Can I ask a question?
Is it about Savage and his, I didn't know that gas behaves completely contrary to all gas law?
No.
I quite like that Savage comment.
Why do you think ballers don't come on your show?
I don't care. Why are you asking me that?
Because their arguments get destroyed, correct?
I
That's
can
the way
only
I always took
assume
it.
so,
Ballers
Neil.
don't come on.
Go on, Neil, just make your point.
Ballers don't come on because their arguments get destroyed. I did not know it was because your show has gotten so bad that ballers don't even come on, and now we have to attack our own side. That's all I'm getting at. I'm just glad I'm enlightened.
In a recent poll, Nathan was voted to be the most hated flat earther. So we had to discover what most hated flat earther was. It was 66% of people hate Nathan the most because he's the worst flat earther. Well,
Most
what does that
hated?
actually mean? It means that he kicks your ass that much.
You said it was worst. That's how you told me last time when you told me about this. You said it was worst flat earther. And I was like, worst? Well, like worst boxer. Well, Mike Tyson's the worst boxer. Imagine coming up against him. Right? That's how I rephrased what you said.
I'll find out exactly how it was worded. Give me 2 seconds.
Most hated's far more severe.
I'm talking about last night, not talking about the other night. What was said last night.
I just want to say that the reason that helium, just for the audience, because unfortunately, these people are drawing in a lot of people on our own side. So for people out there who are listening to this, helium balloon, the helium is inside the balloon. In air, the air supports it and helps it to rise, but there's no air in a vacuum. So the density of the material of the balloon pulls the helium that's contained inside down. But once that balloon bursts, that helium fills the available volume. That's gas behavior.
Indeed.
I think I can prove a downward bias.
Drop a microphone.
Well, oh no. Can you
Hello,
wait till
guys.
we've only got. Hey, Arwin. We've only got 2 minutes before we start the live show. So can you wait for any scientific evidence of gravity?
Yep, I'll prove a downward bias then.
No, you won't. Don't get
Oh,
into character
anyway,
on the
so
pre-show.
Downward bias only exists in man.
He's getting into character. He's just getting into his ball head character before the show starts. He's like, yeah, we'll prove it.
Well, Arwen actually got it right. Yeah, the only bias that exists is in people's minds.
Well, I was hoping you'd do it because nothing's going to get bias.
Bias.
Again?
Weak sauce. Only bias exists in your mind. That's
Now
akin
we're
to it. It
recycling
was
puns?
all a dream ending.
Downward bias is a man-made device.
What?
There you go, Nathan. Which flat earther is the absolute worst in your opinion, and why? You've dropped down to 45% now. Nathan Thompson's making a recovery at 27%. Well, you're the absolute worst, Nathan.
That's what I thought you said. Worst. Yeah,
Yeah.
worst. I can
Well,
deal
you know, they're all about the same, aren't they?
Dude, I'm not on that list.
with. You're the best flat earther, Arwin. Arwin is.
No, you're a flat earther, aren't you, Arwin?
Oh, Is there a best
ball
flat
earther-
earth list?
A ball earther apologist.
A ball apologist? Yeah, a little.
A
Where's
ball
the
apologist.
survey
Yeah.
taking place?
I'm not going to say where because I don't want to glorify him.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below the video there is a link to get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Neil, Sleeping Warrior, 10th Man, Arwin, Father of a Stolen Child, Brian's Logic, and a whole bunch of people on Discord, so welcome one and all.
Good afternoon.
Everybody.
Happy
Hello.
Friday or Sunday.
Hello.
Ever since I said please
Happy
don't
Friday
mention,
or Sunday.
don't mention the day that we're broadcasting live, because it's often
Oh,
broadcast at a
right.
different time. But every day since I've said that, somebody has mentioned the day that this is recorded on. Anyway,
Yeah, you idiots.
Right, that's why
That's
I say
our-
Friday or Sunday. Right?
That's Arwin's slightly awkward persona for you.
it's one of those awkward things that I
Don't switch the
remember.
light off.
You know, Stephen Fry, when he hosts QI, it's one of those awkward things that I can hear in the tone of his voice when someone else brings it up. Like, don't mention the day we're filming it, because it's probably not being watched on that day. So, you know, but he's a much more polite person than me in terms of his bluntness. You know, I've got a very low standard in terms of my professionalism on this type of show. So to try and yank that up out of the dirt rows of horribleness is quite some feat. So I've got to be blunt. Anyway, should we do some housekeeping?
Yeah.
Check Discord. Did we hear anything from Discord already?
We never hear anything anyway. I never know it's switched on.
You never know. Can someone say hello from Discord? Oh, we did. We had a chat with Righteous earlier.
That's right.
DDD. Perfect.
Any evidence of a downward bias?
Well, we can start there.
No.
I don't mind. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Definitely no scientific evidence for gravity.
But there's a
I will say
downward
this.
bias.
I'm curious to
There's
see
no
what
downward
Bob Mandel
bias.
did on Globebusters yesterday. So I'll plug that in because I don't know. I'm excited about it.
Well, we discussed it on the pre-show. You were here, but there was an assertion
Right.
that gas goes down, go boom boom, tying Bob to Thunderfoot in terms of the assertion that's required to have a downward bias, which leaves you asserting that gas goes down, go boom boom, like solid bonded bouncy balls, because of the bias towards Earth, and that doesn't
Shout out
happen.
to John Savage, the little Trojan he was. Woo!
Well, should I just play that clip that you sent me? Okay,
I
I'll
don't
just
know.
play it. So,
Is it actually worth?
Yeah, you should play it, Nate.
well, I'll contextualize it first. So what? Just because not Adam, Sleeping Warrior's already mentioned this to preempt it. So rather than poisoning the well, there's an assertion that gas goes down, go boom boom. Let's try that again. There's an assertion that gas goes down, go boom boom in this particular section that Anthony's trimmed out from yesterday's live stream special report from Globebusters. And in it, John Savage is like, "Oh, I didn't realise gas goes down, go boom boom." Now, it's not being phrased that way, but that's essentially what's being said. So I'm going to play the clip out and...
Okay, but this device right here crushes the relative density disequilibrium argument. Absolutely crushes it, because there is nothing that you can claim here where anything is going from a less dense to more dense medium. It's in a vacuum. It's all the same medium, and yet there is still a downward acceleration, and that downward acceleration does change from place to place, and even sometimes in the same place, right?
So Bob, does that, at the risk of sounding stupid, and I'm feeling pretty stupid at the moment, but does, when you say everything goes down, do you mean gases as well inside this device?
Even gases will, yes, because if you have helium, and helium is the least dense gas we know, right?
Mm-hmm.
But even helium has to be, if it's going to rise, it has to float up on something, right? Well, if there's nothing to float up on, then what's it going to do? It's going to sit on the bottom.
Sit on the bottom. That's really interesting. I didn't know that. And do they have these sort of devices, bigger devices than these? That, because I'm just thinking about Zach's balls.
Okay, so as I say, this leaves the person in a position where they're having to assert that helium will go down, go boom boom, release it in a vacuum chamber, and it'll sit on the bottom. No.
Can I just give a shout out to hydrogen gas? It's less dense than the helium. Shout out to hydrogen.
Doesn't matter which gas. Any gas in that chamber will just expand in all directions to fill the availability of volume it has to fill. That's what gas does. So no, gas does not go down, go boom boom.
Well, gas might go down, go boom boom if it's contained within a container limiting its ability to spread in all directions in the available volume.
No, it'll still...
That part is not being addressed, though.
No, it'll still expand in that container. So, for example, as you can find very easily if you Google search it, if you put a helium balloon, that would be a container limiting the height, if you will, that it can go up. But it's still going to expand in all directions in the helium balloon until it pops because of a lack of pressure on the outside of the balloon due to the pressure on the outside being pumped out of the chamber. But upon that popping occurring, it will just expand in all directions to fill the availability of volume. It won't pool on the bottom, asserting that you've got a vacuum at the top and something at the bottom, a layer of helium. No, that is not gas behaviour. Guys with a downward bias. Right, you're just going to have to get used to this, guys with a downward bias. You can debunk it with a kettle.
I've just had an epiphany moment. I know how we could make it appear that there was a downwards acceleration or a downwards bias with gas in a vacuum. If we apply Einstein's equivalence principle, he would say that if gas molecules were expanding on all available directions at 600 meters per second, if you were to accelerate upwards at 600 meters per second, the molecules that were going up would appear that they weren't going up because they were going with the same speed as the acceleration. And we could perceive a downwards acceleration bias. But that means that we would have to be accelerating up at 600 meters per second, which we're not. So just ponder that one.
Yeah, thanks for making it incredibly confusing. Thanks.
Meanwhile, gas expands in all directions to fill the availability of volume. And to have this downward bias, you end up making crazy assertions like gas goes down because it behaves like solid bonded bouncy balls. Or when releasing helium in a vacuum, it will in fact pool at the bottom. No, these things are incorrect, and they are the path that leads you to make such stupid comments if you've got a downward bias in your life. There is no downward bias, some things go up.
I just want to say something there about the gravimeters, because they did talk about them last night. When I had the debate with Witsit Gets It a couple of months ago there on Quantum Erasers channel, Witsit Gets It, Austin brought up the gravimeters, and when I asked him which one he was speaking about, he didn't want to give an answer, or he wasn't able to give an answer because I didn't get any straight answer, but I don't think he even realised there was two different ones. And Bob didn't realise. I know Bob didn't realise it. And Jaron, although I'm not adding Jaron in here because he actually did a bit of research on them after that debate, but he didn't realise it either. So Bob was pushing gravimeters. as a proof of a downward bias when he didn't even know there was two different ones. There is an absolute, which is basically a calculation. It's based on 9.8 M2, right? That they base the whole of the absolute on 9.8 M2. Then there is a relative, which is calibrated off of this other one. So they're starting with a pre-assumption of 9.8 M2, right? And then what they do with the relative one, they, as Bob just said there earlier, they go from place to place, and what happens is they drop a weight through a vacuum space within this relative gravimeter, like a little steel ball or some kind of weight. That's what maybe they've changed it with. I think there's some changes with the newer ones, but that was what they did all along, the same thing, right? And when they drop this steel weight, there's nothing around the weight, so it drops just down to the bottom because there's nothing there, there's no friction, there's no gas, no anything in this vacuum chamber within the gravimeter. So they drop this weight and it goes down to the bottom. They pre-assume it fell at 9.8 meters per second squared because they can't measure how fast it's going. They just pre-assume it, right, based on Charles Ferdinand Boy's calculation from 1896. And when they, as Bob said, they could do that in my kitchen today and then come back tomorrow and get a different reading, right? Because the air pressure in my kitchen could be different, right? That alone could change it. There's all kinds of factors could change that around. So all they're doing is putting a helium balloon into a vacuum chamber and it going down to the bottom. The only difference is they're using a steel ball instead of a helium balloon. There's no difference. It's total and utter assumption, 9.8 M2 nonsense. That's what it is. And that's why they can go from place to place and get different readings, then come back to the same place they were at and get a different reading there.
The helium balloon.
It's absolute manure.
The helium balloon in that example is a container. So inside that container is the helium pooling at the bottom of it. So you've got like a really saggy bit of balloon at the top and a really stretched bit at the bottom because it's all gone to the bottom. Does that or does it expand in all directions inside the container in this example, a balloon?
No, the helium in the balloon is forcing itself out at every available portion of that balloon. The helium is trying to escape, and what happens when the pressure drops enough, the balloon busts and the helium fills the available chamber.
Indeed.
Wow, sounds like what I said in the pre-show.
Any evidence you can have gas pressure without a container?
No, that's absurd.
Well, if they have gas going down, going boom, boom, it's possible. But if they don't, then, you know what I mean? It's pretty difficult.
But gas going down, go boom, boom, still don't think you can demonstrate that without a container. In fact, I don't think where's this containerless space that we know of?
But when Ted said after the balloon bursts and the helium disperses, it's no longer a vacuum chamber, correct?
It's got gas in it.
A chamber, you say?
Yeah,
isn't the chamber a container?
Yeah, so the container stops being the balloon and becomes the chamber itself. Yes, Neil.
Can I just play devil's advocate for a sec for Bob?
By all means.
Why would you want to do that?
He does what Rumpus does right at the start of an argument. You know how Rumpus will get like a shady little secret out straight away that you miss because he's just being polite and it's right at the start. This whole conversation was all in the confines of Bob's model. He did clearly state at the beginning that within his model that he's created, the confines of his model, this can work.
It's not his model. It's Ken Wheeler. It's Flat Earth Society 2.0 electric universe nonsense. That's what it is.
But he did.
It's not his model, Ken Wheeler's.
Yeah, but he preached it. It becomes his because he preached it. But it's his model, though.
What a
Was
funny
I
coincidence.
hearing wrong when he said that they know how God created matter and where matter comes from?
Yeah, he spoke it into existence.
Gas pressure
Yeah, he
without a
spoke it
container.
into existence.
Just for the relevancy of the show, there is a overriding Western worldview that the sky is a vacuum, that we have gas pressure without containment. Any evidence that that's possible?
No evidence.
Within Bob's model, though, It can be.
Yeah, but the whole globe model is falling apart because it doesn't match reality, and now Bob's model is falling apart because it doesn't match reality.
Wait a
Yeah, but
second.
if it works in his model,
Yes, Nathan.
But who cares what's happening in the model? We want reality to offset what the model is. If the model is going to be held up as akin to be equal to what we observe and experience in reality, and it falls short of it, then the model is wrong.
Models mean nothing unless they scientific models are the only thing that matters, and they have to be supported by experiment, scientific experiment that adheres to scientific method. I mean, QB even shown the citation of this.
I thought models were pseudoscience.
what if I calculated the frequency in which the discharge of the molecules from the sky down to the Earth and gave it a probability calculator? We'll call it the Boltzmann formula. We could call it the Boltzmann formula and if I could calculate these things, then that would kind of add credibility to my model, wouldn't it?
Dude, why don't you just write a book about him?
Yes. Anyway, as Ten points out, there's a Western worldview,
the book
a heliocentric model where people already think that they've got a sky vacuum, and somewhere else, I'm sure there's someone else that's got a crazy model that doesn't actually match reality. And even if it did, it wouldn't be the terrain you stood on. It wouldn't be reality. So while there's other people out there with their crazy notions of how the world works, there's ultimately a mass idea of a sky vacuum.
There's no such thing as a sky vacuum.
There is in his model.
If there was a vacuum outside of us and no containment, and all the gas we're breathing now, we wouldn't be breathing it. A gas pressure gradient cannot form within a vacuum.
Indeedy.
When you have reality, you don't need models.
Yeah, but if I have a model, then within my model, I can be right.
Then you don't have reality. You have a model.
Anthony's right. Yes, you can do what you like in a model, Anthony. So what?
Well, it just means that I can explain the real world, Nathan.
No, it doesn't. It means you can do what you like in a model, and models aren't real world. So it doesn't make any difference to the real world we experience if you can describe something in a model. You can draw your correlations, but it has no cause. It's not science. It's not explaining an effect. So who cares? In this case, the effect that's being explained with this nonsense is an effect we don't experience. What downward bias?
It's like having a conversation with someone and say, can you show it to me? No, but I have this model, and in there it works.
Yeah. Anyway, any evidence?
That's the way we all see it.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Only in their model.
93 million miles.
No, there was no evidence of the distance to the sun. No evidence.
Well, there's evidence that's not 93 million miles.
Or we've debunked R. Any evidence of the R value used to assume the distance to the sun?
No, that's completely gone as well, because there's no physical geometric horizon. All horizons are apparent only.
Well said. Very concise. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Good job, Lucky Charm.
You can, thank you. You can put that in the basket as well. There's no evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core, you know.
Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Yes,
not
Nathan.
possible.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Go on, Neil. What you got?
I'm sorry. I'm just doing my job and saying yes, Nathan.
What?
It's an inside joke.
Hold on. Have you got a valid hypothesis? Have one of the fields offered this, Neil?
Yeah, the
Making me go
hypothesis.
against my job. No, Nathan.
The hypothesis is Bob said Neil and I are yes men, so we're just playing the model part.
Oh God, why are you all so obsessed with Bob?
I'm not. I'm just telling you
it's
why
the model.
he said yes.
The model, not the person. It's the model, Nathan.
Shut up, you second grader.
Let's stick to the house creating questions though, because that's what Nathan wants.
Let's deal with this first.
No, Nathan, it's not possible to have a valid hypothesis from those disciplines, as they can only observe the phenomenon. They can't manipulate their presumed cause.
Will they ever?
No offense to them. No offense to them. There's nothing wrong with them. It's just they can only create a story based on what they see. They can't prove the story.
Yeah, but
Oh,
that's part of
the Irish are
They're
so
creating a
hospitable. Look, look, look. No offense, but your entire career is a sham. No offense. You're not a scientist and you can't do science. But no offense. None intended.
Just trying to be fair as possible.
Just being polite. You're a fraud.
I did hear
But isn't that
Glover
part of why
yesterday
we're having
say
this problem?
that their predictions.
Go on, whoever's trying to get that in. Was it from Discord?
Paul.
That's Paul. That's Paul.
Go
I
ahead,
said
Paul.
I did hear Glover yesterday say in astronomy, I can make a prediction of what I will see, and if I don't see that, then it invalidates my prediction. So they still think observation is an independent variable, that you can see or not see something, and that will determine whether your theory or hypothesis is accurate or not.
Yeah.
Someone did say that in Discord.
So in demonstration, the flaw in that is to say, I can see a boiling hot spring. I think it's acid content that causes it. And then you close your eyes for 25 seconds, open them again. Look, check it out, I observed it again. It's still boiling. That's science, that is. No, it's not, no. No, varying what you think caused the effect and validating it. That's science.
So, like my 5-year-old experiment that we do in primary school, as simple as it may be, when you apply scientific method to it and you give that thing that you think causes the effect a bit of a nudge and it causes the effect, however simple that test might be, the point that's proven is the whole purpose for why I did it. Shout out to scientific method. It weeds out science from the pseudoscience.
Yeah. You varied your assumed cause of the effect and it caused it, invalidating your null.
Like we all didn't do that.
Well, what I would say is the likes of Ken Wheeler has his own version of what's happening in the sky and what's causing what to happen. Now, supposedly there is observed orbits. Now, I have never seen one of those. I don't know how you would see one, but I presume with a very large telescope. I have never seen one myself, so I can't validate that the phenomenon exists. But it is claimed that it does exist, and it is claimed from astrophysics and other disciplines similar that it's due to the curvature of space-time that causes these apparent orbits.
No, no. Pseudo four-space geometry isn't causing anything.
Well, I'm only talking about their claims. I didn't say it. It was just that's what they claim.
Yeah, they make.
Are you saying that they see
I'm not
orbits?
finished. I'm not finished. Then you have people on the electric universe side, Ken Wheeler types, who are then claiming that it's due to some kind of dielectric incoherent acceleration or whatever, right? Now, none of them can prove any of that, because the first thing they'd have to show is the phenomenon, number one. And number two, all they can do is make up stories. And the story a homeless guy on the street makes up is as valid as theirs, because none of them can prove it. Because they can't manipulate their independent variable.
Yeah. I just want to know if you could see orbits.
No, orbits is
Has
a
any human seen orbits?
No, orbits is an assumption of rocks, physical or otherwise, falling around other bodies in the sky. They would describe how moons move around what they call planets. When you track them over periods of time, they assert that as a body of mass falling around another body of mass, and then they extrapolate that out into us falling around the sun. The presupposition. Orbit begs the question.
Yeah, I can't get behind that. If you're actually seeing it through a telescope, that's another story. But if you're telling me that's not happening through a telescope where it's being observed by people, then I can't get behind it, because even the story.
Even if you see something happening by a telescope, it doesn't mean what they attach to it.
Exactly.
Yes, but at least you're seeing something that appears to be in orbit.
No.
The sun moves at 15 degrees an hour. Is that an orbit?
Neil, orbit is a description. Yeah, it's got a cause and effect relationship associated with it, right? Things falling around other things, Well, no, it's not actually a validated cause and effect relationship. It's just a just so story. But what do they have just told you? What are they actually doing? Brian's just told you. They're just observing effect. So you see a light doing something in the sky. Well, you can easily call that a phenomena. Well, what's the cause of that effect? Well, we are on a sphere falling around another sphere. That's orbits. And that light in the sky, that's doing that too. The description of what I attribute to Earth as a sphere falling around another sphere, the sun, in a sky vacuum, in this model called the heliocentric sun at centre model, is how the world actually is. Because the lights in the sky, I can say, look like they're doing that also. Therefore, we are doing it also. That's all it is. It's an assumption. It's a begging the question fallacy. Orbits begs the question.
Well, that's absurd. I don't want to hear about it no more.
Any evidence of Earth curve? Physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as?
Not that I'm aware of.
Why would you expect to see Earth curve on Earth that's supposed to be curved?
Because the Earth curve, if asserted as asserted, would have physical geometric limitations that block the bottoms of boats and buildings, as described in orthographic hijacking perspective curve calculators, where they assert precisely that. The physical geometry of Earth gets in the way of things and causes them to be obstructed from bottom up, in a feet and inches value that does not change with distance. However, the angular size of things does change with distance, and this has been hijacked and called Earth curve to assert physical obstructions at geometric tangent points, formerly known as Earth curvature. The physical obstruction at the horizon, i.e. they claim the horizon is physical Earth curve blocking your view. Meanwhile, we only have one horizon. The horizon in Earth curve maths is physical and geometric, and the horizon we see in reality is not. The horizon is not Earth curve. It is not physical. It's not blocking boats and buildings. It moves with the weather. It's not a geometric tangent point, and the Black Swan has demonstrated that to the point where their own side, on the globe-believing side that is, tell us how non-geometric it is. In other words, how it's not Earth curve, that's the rebuttal to the Black Swan. We wouldn't expect to see geometry. What, the geometry that blocks boats and buildings? Well, okay, we wouldn't expect to see Earth curve. Earth is flat. Welcome to the club.
Who said that? Chocolate?
Chocolate?
Is there? Morning.
Oh, he's okay.
Hey, Chocolate. You know what triangle? Are any of the three lines that, let's say, that make up a triangle, are any of them curved?
No, in order to do the geometry they require, which Euclidean, if they're going to be measuring anything that they're going to put on a map, they're going to need straight lines, not curved ones. And that's how they measure it.
Yeah, and that's how, see, because of that, Chocolate, that's why you can't expect to see the curve of the Earth. Because you can't expect them to do the geometry with a curved surface.
Can you just explain Cartesian coordinates for anybody who says, well, GPS has got the word global in it?
Yeah. Well, actually, GPS is better served being called the geodetic positioning system or ground positioning system, because that's its origins. So, but they can add in the word global if they want, or goalpost, or any other thing that starts with G.
But when they're mapping that in the first instance, they're mapping it on a tangent plane, and the tangent bit is derived from a horizon that's imaginary 90 degrees to a zenith that's presupposed to be pointing towards the centre of an Earth that's spherical. Well, that system is then transposed into an actual measuring system that's flat. That's the bit I meant, rather than focusing on the global bit in GPS.
Oh yeah, sorry. Oh no. All their coordinates, all the raw data for surveying and cartography, are all flat out XYZ coordinates. They're all Cartesian. There is no curve in their coordinates. There is only elevation.
Exactly.
And it's then mathematically converted from Cartesian flat out to the flattening of the WGS 84 or NGS 80 datums, and then it's converted, if necessary, which often doesn't happen, it's then converted to oblate spheroid. So there's a couple of steps before they get to their belief, but you have to start with reality, which is flat.
Indeed. The Cartesian bit is what I thought you were referring to when you were asking about a triangle and whether or not you got a curved line to deal with. Well, no, and when you're measuring stuff using Cartesian method, you're not going to get a curve to work with that, and that's how they're mapping it out. Why? Well, because it's flat. It's as simple as that. They wouldn't be mapping it in that way if it wasn't flat.
Exactly. Why would you do that if it wasn't flat? Makes no sense. It would be a thing. That it wouldn't be flat. That would be a constant thing. But it isn't. It's a constant thing that it is.
Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
I think that's the second. Oh, no, sorry. I thought that was asked that earlier. No, I mixed up. No, there's no evidence of that, sorry.
Wouldn't you first need that geometric curve? So then that geometric curve would be the curve that's actually spinning. Don't you need one before the other? If you don't have the curve, what the hell is spinning?
Not necessarily. You can have axial rotation demonstrations by way of the same assertion they make on a ball Earth that spins. Now, because they make the assertion on a ball Earth that spins doesn't mean you can't induce Coriolis deflection from a flat, round surface like a roundabout. You just got to spin and watch things that are not on the roundabout looking like they're moving when they're not. But that's the assertion they've got on a ball Earth, but it doesn't mean you need Earth curve to assert it. It is part of the heliocentric rhetoric after all, but it doesn't necessarily need you to assume the spherical nature. You could have a square spinning around, a flat square, and still make their claims of Coriolis deflection, which don't happen. So, no. Unlike the black swan, where you can use the black swan to actually link to debunking things like the gas pressure without a container, that's been done.
Yeah,
do you know
well, I get that. All I'm saying is that if it's supposed to be a ball that's curved or that's rotating, doesn't it have to be a ball first?
Yeah, absolutely. But if I could get a segue from debunking axial rotation with the black swan, I'd love to see it. I didn't think there'd be one that would link it directly to the vacuum of space, but that definitely is the case. So I can't remember who did it and how they did it, but it was a few shows ago now. But somebody definitely managed to say, no, you don't need the gas pressure without a container argument. You just need the black swan because, and then they explain why. I just can't remember off the top of my head how. But I don't think you can do the same with axial rotation. Maybe someone will correct me if I'm wrong on that score. You need the top three. Maybe you don't need the gas pressure without a container as much as it's everyone's favourite argument because it's so concise and easy to use. You can blow someone's mind in 30 seconds with that argument. On the other hand, you do still definitely require a physical geometric sphere edge to have the need for the argument that has the debunking of gas pressure without a container. So once you debunk the assertion of a sphere edge horizon, you've no longer got a sphere, then therefore you've no longer got the issue to try and explain away how the sphere in a vacuum works.
Well, gas pressure without a container is based on a force of gravity belief. But gravity since 1915 has not been a force. It has been a four-dimensional mathematical effect. And what we are told we will observe is apparent orbits. So technically, in the heliocentric model, there is no actual explanation for how the gas supposedly velcros itself to the surface of the globe Earth.
That's correct. And Anthony Riley will testify to that on account of the fact that me and he have had probably 20 arguments about that exact subject. Because Anthony is all for arguing why gravity doesn't hold gas here. I'm like, even in their own rhetoric, it doesn't hold gas here. So why are we arguing about this? And Anthony's reply, because that's what they argue at trench level. I'm like, so Muppets that don't understand their own rhetoric, that gravity isn't overcoming entropy in their current rhetoric of bending force space. That isn't an issue in terms of the bending force space holding gas here. It doesn't do that. It's not asserted to do that. It can't do that. But yet they do, as Anthony has correctly identified, and I argued against. I've conceded since, just so Anthony knows he got the win, that they argue it.
Well, can I just point out it's not really a win or a lose. It's the difference between making the decision of do we allow them to beg the question to have the argument in the first place, or do we just say, nope, it's complete bullshit and stop it before it even starts. It's not really about win or lose. It's about the tactic of letting them beg the question.
Yeah, but at some stage, as I found, and this was after arguing it for the dozenth time or whatever, that somebody will weasel it in when you're saying, well, this has no bearing when you've got Bending's force base, the current 106-year out-of-date rhetoric of a force that's potentially asserted to hold gas here because it's a force isn't in existence anymore. It's been superseded. So your current rhetoric has no overcome for gas pressure without a container. In fact, in their rhetoric, they say, well, a little bit of gas gets into space. But the rest of it's just the rebellious gas particles, because there is no story. We're just left to invent it for ourselves.
Bob did say something I thought I did find interesting. He said that if you get a container filled with pressure, gas pressure of some kind, he said, and then over time, he said, if you come back to it, it'll lose pressure over time. And I thought, does it do that? And I know that they conserve momentum, and I know that the collisions with the walls of the container are elastic, and there is no net loss. But I don't know where he's got the claim from there that they lose pressure over time. Does anybody know whether he's got anything to support that?
Well, there's two ways that could happen. Number one is if the gas could very, very, very slowly escape the container, and number two is if it starts to drop in temperature and maybe starts to phase change, then you won't have the same pressure inside it.
Yeah, but something's got to happen. In ideal circumstances, no, that won't happen. It would just remain the same.
I'd love to know what he thinks. This is why it's a bit rubbish that he won't have the conversation, because it's like we've got to now speculate as to why he's got that thought rather than just ask him. But it would be interesting if he'd qualify where he got that perception from, because it's like I don't see how that's possible. But he's obviously picked it up somewhere.
Clarify his position. Are you saying that he's asserting that gas slows down? Does it?
Yeah, he says that over time, if you get gas molecules in a vacuum chamber, they will lose the kinetic energy over time, and like a clock slows down over time with the batteries going flat. It's like he actually said that, not batteries going flat, but he said that the gas molecules slow down.
Okay, so that's one step prior to gas go down, go boom boom. Then, so over time, the gas in the air loses energy and falls like dust. Eventually, it'll end up on the floor. No, it isn't going to do that. That's not what gas does. It has elastic collisions.
And they conserve momentum. So where does he get this perception from?
I think he's talking about the fact that energy has to be transferred to something else. So that's the heat issue. Whereas you could transfer the heat to another location, and the heat of that particle reduces.
Yeah, we're not
but
talking
if the
about
heat doesn't change, the particle won't do anything.
We're not talking about phase change, though. We've just covered that, Paul. No, we're not talking about when there's something that's actually occurring that's causing it to change state. No, we're just talking about gas maintained at a constant temperature in an actual sealed container. Now, if you can easily argue, as Brian did or he alluded to initially, well, where are you going to find that perfect container? There's going to be some flaw in it. In other words, when you've got that demonstration with the bromine, if you left that on the counter for a long enough time, eventually you'd find that the bromine did leak out because it wouldn't have perfect seals. They'd be very good, but they would not be perfect. So yeah, given enough time, the tiny little failures in these seals, which might work their way loose over time with lots and lots of bromine smashing into them all day long. That's just how entropy works. Likewise, you leave it enough time, the gas will disappear completely. That's just how entropy works. Given enough time.
For me, sorry, Nick.
I was just saying that's it. It's proportional to time. So yeah, over time, yeah, it's going to change.
For me, listening last night, it was very clear that Bob actually didn't know about elastic collisions. That's what I have to take from it. Because if he did, anyone who understands elastic collisions of gas molecules wouldn't be asserting that. That's just not what happens. So I think he has a lack of understanding about gas.
I think he must be applying non-elastic collisions, or thinking that they run out of energy, kinetic energy, because he must be applying non-elastic.
Yeah, like Rumpus does with balls, like Thunderfoot does with balls. No, gas will behave like ball. You throw it up in the air and it runs out of energy, comes back down again, and returns to equilibrium. But that's because it's bonded and more dense than the air it's travelling through. Now, the gas itself does not behave like that. Gas doesn't behave like balls. It doesn't run out of energy. It just expands into the area that it's got and bounces around indefinitely. That's what it does. That's how gas behaves.
What was interesting last night, and I've heard this, clip being played before, was on GoBusters last night. They played a clip from Walter Lewin, an MIT professor, pretty famous one. And this actual clip would help us out against the ballers, because he states that gravity doesn't start until you go out into basically four-dimensional space, right? Because he's speaking about there. Bob didn't realise it, because from what I could hear last night, Bob or the rest of the panel actually do not understand what gravity is at present. They don't understand the history of the gravity argument, or the history of gravity, let's just say, as a claim. But this lad, Walter Lewin, was saying that that electricity is far more prevalent in the world than gravity, and we don't experience that more or less. And the gravity doesn't start until you reach kind of space and orbits and stuff like that.
Sure.
What he was basically saying is that what he was basically saying is that what he was speaking about is Einstein's relativity, as that is the current model and description of gravity, which he would know, being an MIT professor. He was not speaking in any way, shape, or form about gravity being a force of attraction of masses, in the 3D reality. He wasn't speaking about that at all.
But
Bob didn't
you said
understand what he was speaking about.
Well, you said twice that, according to who is it you're talking about? Sorry, Lewin. Did you say?
Walter Lewin, yeah.
So when he describes gravity kicking in, as you phrased it, when you get to force space reality. So which magic wardrobe are we traveling through to get to force space exactly?
Well, yeah, he didn't state that. I mean, I'm not saying I'm not using his words verbatim, but that was exactly that's what he was talking about. My words might be slightly different, but we can play the clip. The clip is there.
But force space isn't real. This geometry is describing a non-existent place. There is no pseudo force space. We don't exist in it. It's not real. It's conceptual. So to say gravity kicks in when we get to the conceptual is actually very accurate.
Yeah, that's what I meant. That's what was very good about it.
Okay, so we don't really need to worry ourselves about the time dilation kicking in when we go through the wardrobe. Likewise, we don't need to worry about space-time bending when we get to force space, because it's not real. It doesn't exist. Narnia doesn't exist. Space-time doesn't exist. Describing it in geometry doesn't make it exist. And we don't need to worry about its effects. There aren't any. Even the effects within this conceptual medium aren't described as forces. So we're all clear, yeah? No force involved, no pseudo-force space, no downward bias, gas doesn't go down, go boom boom.
Yeah, I
think the argument for the...
I just want to state that Walter Lewin at no point addressed gravity as a force of attraction between masses in the 3D reality we live in. Okay.
Perfect. Go ahead, Paul.
It's what the Globers need to be arguing is what can change the direction of the particle or the vector, whatever the right terminology would be. And if you're saying that and I've heard them say that you can actually have something move in a curve that's still moving in a straight line. Before I've heard them argue that.
Yes, that's geodesics. Yes. That would be geodesics in space-time.
Right. So something has to change the direction of the particle that is traveling. So what is the cause of that? What is causing that? Is it the geodesics? Well, that's mathematics. That can't change the direction of anything. It's just describing something.
Traveling where? Sorry.
Changing the direction?
Sorry, it's traveling where, Paul? In space-time? Did you say? That's not somewhere anything travels in.
Mathematical construct.
Right. Well, we actually had a big discussion about that off air yesterday. Go ahead.
Paul, are you speaking about particles in 3D reality or particles in 4D space-time?
I mean, when a particle's traveling, it's moving in a direction. That's reality, right? So something has got to change the direction of that particle. What's causing it to change direction? But if a particle is moving upward at whatever velocity, then all of a sudden it starts to change direction and move back downward towards the ground. What is the thing that's causing it to change direction?
That doesn't happen.
That's pretty much what's happening.
No, that doesn't happen. Hold on. You just.
But that's their argument. That's their argument. It's not my argument. It's not your argument. That's their argument. They have to argue what's changing the direction of the particles.
Yeah, they have to assert that particles, that would include gas, goes down, go boom, boom. Thank you, Paul. Yes, that's correct. That's what they have to argue. And eventually, when you take them down that path and lead them to actually describe what they assume happens with the downward bias, gas pools at the bottom. That's not gas behavior. That's not what this does. That's nonsense.
But that's weird because we were told gas tends to wander about and run off.
Yeah, Rumpus's crude description of gas expanding in all directions. Yeah, that's what gas does. Yeah, doesn't go down, doesn't go boom boom, doesn't pool, doesn't run out of energy.
In a container, that will change the direction of the particle. It collides with a wall and it changes direction.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It will have it will have what is known as elastic collisions with other particles within the container and the walls of the container. Yes.
I think what's going on, Paul, is that, and I deal with this myself, is the ballers are at the point where they're trying to throw in little bits of four-dimensional relativity, but while still trying to keep a force of 3D gravity attraction within the argument, because they don't know they can't understand. They just don't understand that 4D relativity is a completely different thing altogether from 3D mass attracting mass force. There is no force in 4D relativity. There is no mass attracting mass. There's none of that. The whole thing is a completely different description. And actually, as I heard it described only recently on a video about relativity being explained, because I watch a lot of these, is that it's actually gravitation is only an illusion caused by 4D relativity. What's going on with these people we're dealing with is they don't understand Einstein's theory of general relativity, but they're throwing in little small things here and there to make it sound like they understand, but only because they're trying to keep the force of gravity argument going, because that is the one they do understand. They're too lazy to even.
Well, go ahead. Finish your thought. Thought you were done.
No, go on, Paul. Yeah, I'm finished.
No, and that's the thing we were talking about when it came up. I was bringing up something that's like late in the afternoon yesterday about, is space physical, right? Well, if it's not, then how can it do anything? And you're saying you're bending space to cause the trajectory of these projectiles to change direction and start going towards some kind of massive object. Doesn't make sense, because only something physical can move something physical. Something that's not physical or only description can't do anything. So even you can describe it so-called in this geodesic way, that doesn't mean that's what's happening, just because you can describe it in a certain way.
Yeah, because geodesics take away the whole bending space-time is an effect, and that's why we're told the effect we call gravity that we will observe is apparent orbits. So it will something that will look like an orbit to us. That's what we're told we will observe when it comes to the effect of gravity. The ballers keep on trying to add in somehow mass attracting mass, that the curvature of space-time and geodesics are all based around mass attracting mass. Still, there isn't anything. My question the other day on the show, Nathan, if you remember, I asked ask any of the ballers how the calculations for mass attracting mass, force of gravity in the 3D, how that explains gravitational lensing. They'll never be able to do it because it's a completely different set of mathematics. It'll never happen, because that means they have to go into 4D Einsteinian relativity to even describe, to even start to describe gravitational lensing.
I like it.
They think the two things are the same. Sorry, Nathan.
I was going to say, I like it. It's like the opposite of QE when he's asking people to describe how the moon attracts the tides with Einsteinian mechanics. You're basically doing the reverse and saying, well, how do you explain the physical effect of gravitational lensing? Well, what you're going to do when you've got to go to the 3D, well, you're going to try and explain how the 4D works in 3D. What are you going to have to do if you've got to go to the 4D, as in your example? Well, you're going to try and explain how the 4D translates into the 3D, right? That's what you're saying. And it's as good as QE's. It's just the other way around. I like it.
Yeah, I mean...
Here's another answer. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Paul. No, you go ahead, Paul.
I see. Here's another here's another aspect of Einstein. All objects have to be in motion for Einstein mechanics to work. They have to be accelerating. So what happens when nothing's accelerating?
Sorry,
Tell me if I'm wrong in that. Under Einstein, everything has to. So if I'm standing at rest, I'm at rest. I'm not moving. How does anything occur? How does anything work?
As in, what creates the movements? Is that what you're asking? What creates the movements within space-time? Is that what you're asking within relativity?
Right, right. So things have to be accelerating and moving. They have to be, something has to be in motion for Einstein to be work, because it has to be following a path. That means accelerating or in motion, or there has to be a velocity involved or something. But if you're not, if you're at rest,
it's the uneven distribution of mass. He explains that as the uneven distribution of mass causes space-time, which is like a flat grid, because special relativity is a flat plane basically. So this causes a disturbance in special relativity, and then something that would be moving. See, I know what you're saying. What makes it all move in the first place? What created these uneven masses? You know what I mean? So, where do you go from there? All you can say is the curvature of space-time causes something that would be moving in a straight line to move in a curved, an apparent curved path.
Well, why don't you just ask Brian Cox so he could tell you that Einstein said the Earth is actually moving up to meet the apple. There you go.
Yeah, there's an upward bias. But that's it.
Funny that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Funny that.
Don't forget, there's one other aspect of that too. The ground's rushing up to meet me here in the States, but it's also rushing up to meet the person in Australia at the same time. Don't forget that as well.
And is the air meeting the ground like the apple and pooling at the bottom because the ground's rushing up towards the air, forcing it to be in a little pool at the bottom? Does that occur? In other words, does gas go down, go boom, boom?
No, actually,
well, I think that
doesn't happen. No, Nathan.
I think they just proved the flat Earth. I think they just proved the flat Earth theory, the flat Earth society, right? That the Earth is accelerating up at 9.3 meters per second squared. They just proved it.
No, they're just the same. Just shock horror, the control-op narrative of flat Earth, to disguise the fact of the obvious and observable nature of our reality, has embedded within it lots of the heliocentric paradigm that is supposedly fighting against, but yet it's got a version of gravity that's identical. Well, what a shocker. And it's got an edge for boats to fall over, like the horizon with your globe Earth. Boats fall over that edge, don't they? Your tangent point horizon Earth curve edge. Remember? Yeah? Yeah, well, that's the same in the Flat Earth Society. Boats falling over the edge. Ha ha ha. Meanwhile, look at my Earth curve calculator. Let's measure how much boats are falling over the edge. Well, that's because they're the same.
To me, it's cool. Sorry, I'm speaking over someone there, am I? No,
I
sorry.
don't think so.
To me, I was getting a bit of feedback. Sorry. To me, what's basically happening is mainstream science, mainstream pseudoscience, are starting to throw Einsteinian relativity out the window. Right now, it's kind of funny that the ballers haven't even caught up to relativity, and that's about to be thrown out the window. So to me, it's kind of strange that the original Flat Earth Society model matched Einstein, basically matched one of the aspects of relativity better than the globe model did when it came to the ground moving up at a constant rate, because then you wouldn't need the relativity, you wouldn't need the mathematics to make up for why someone in Australia and in the US has the ground coming up to meet an object that's dropping at the same time. But the problem is if that's thrown out the window, then it seems to me like there's a whole new Flat Earth Society 2.0 on the go at the moment, starting with the likes of Ken Wheeler. Even though he doesn't state to be a flat earther, it's his principles that are starting this thing, right? So they're coming up with a whole heap of nonsense, this electric universe nonsense, a whole new load of jargon to try and bring people in to the fold, whatever that fold is going to be. That's what it seems like to me is happening, because if mainstream pseudoscience are pushing Einsteinian relativity out the window, then the old Flat Earth Society model, maybe that needs to go as well. I don't know. That's just speculation.
And you're right, I'm sure. But in the meantime, it's like, well, until the ghost hunters are starting to assert things that parallel with us, with their downward bias, which they don't assert. What are we going to concern ourselves with other men and their models that are being asserted to other people who want to follow them? And this just becomes another one of them. Electric universe is no different. Well, okay, electric universe until it's being asserted that the Earth we stand on, we are describing as having no bias because things go up. It's suddenly asserted to have a downward bias, then okay, we can address that. But that's already part of the heliocentric rhetoric. They've got these 106-year out-of-date forces and bending space-time with geodesics. Well, all of these things are debunked right here, and that's the only reason there's a parallel. But, you know, some other crazy person with a crazy model that people want to buy into, is that our issue? Generally not.
There's two types of ball earther, though. There's one type that is, I don't understand Einsteinium, which is Brenda, because she doesn't understand it, and she admits it. And then there's the other side, which is the rumpus that absolutely understands it, but will never, ever, 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 ever argue it, because Einsteinian gravitation is the Earth accelerating upwards. That makes them the weird flat earther that the Flat Earth Society promote. They become the flat earther. So Rumpus will never, ever argue it because he knows not to. Brenda doesn't argue it because she doesn't realize what it means. And everybody else is sat there going, come on, dickheads, start arguing for Einstein because that's the current position. And we're just sat there going, yeah, disproves that, dickheads.
I don't believe Rumpus does understand it, to be honest. Sorry, Nathan.
Oh, he absolutely knows that the Earth's moving up in Einsteinian gravitation, and he'll never, ever argue it.
I don't know. I had a few exchanges with him, and he didn't seem to understand it. To be honest with you, he just didn't seem to get it. He said a few things, he didn't seem to get it. I mean, I know Rumpus is pretty sharp at times with the way he deals with debating and that, but I just don't believe he understands it. I believe that Rumpus doesn't have a clue about relativity. He doesn't get it at all.
Doesn't need to. Just needs to know how to argue it.
So
well, he understood enough to tell us that the orbit of Mercury apparently could not be figured out in our 3D world that we actually live in reality. Right. So we got to go into the 4D world.
Yep.
Figure that out. Yeah, that's great.
In 3 minutes' time, when this show ends, I'm basically dealing with the Globebusters show from last night, from my perspective. So although we've done it on the show today, from the group's perspective, you're going to get my private angle on it. It's all on topic, it's all to the point, but it deals with some of the points that Bob made last night. And it's just got an interesting conclusion. So if you're interested, go and check it out. Links in the chat.
I have to show after this, Anthony.
It's called multitasking, innit?
Yeah. Hey, can I buy tickets to this 4D world? Chocolate, how do I get there? Because you're okay.
You go to the virtual ticket terminal, and all you do there is you just calculate that into existence, and then you've got your ticket.
No, you can't go there. There is no calculating things into existence. You can't, Neil. Sorry. Narnia's not real either. You can't go through the wardrobe. Sorry.
Shoot.
Turns out there's a magic train that takes you to the 4D world.
Is that like the train in Harry Potter?
Yes. Well, I was thinking more like the train in like the train man in the Matrix. Goes between the worlds. Yeah.
We've only got a minute left to talk about the show.
More like so.
Have you guys subscribed to Matrix Explained?
No.
Check out the channel called Matrix Explained. It'll get massive, I'm sure of it, but you know, I started watching when he was small, and he's got a good subject, so he's grown massively very quickly. Anyway, one of his ideas, or her ideas, whoever the channel owner is, has been that the train man was the original architect from one of the previous versions of the Matrix. So he's an exile program beyond his useful limits when the new version comes along, but rather than going back to the source, he sought out exile somehow, and then become, you know, part of one of those exile programs. But presumably, according to the Matrix Explained guy, the idea is that he's a former architect of the Matrix. In other words, he would sit in the same position that the guy with all the monitors sits in until he was exiled.
That would sort of explain why the train man was so pissed.
It also explains why he can just create things like the train station, right? Central, whatever it's called. Food for thought. Shout out to Alexander for hitting the super chat. Do another quick plug for Anthony's show, which is going out in about a minute's time on Sleeping Warrior channel. He's put a link to his new channel, so subscribe today and check out his stream, which will be going out in about a minute from now. So with that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you first and foremost to both Discord and G+ Panel for making today's live show possible. If you're watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Also, below this video, there is a link to get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. I've been Nathan Oakley. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on a premiering stream, and I'll see you all in the next video.
I'm just paying attention. I'm not really focusing on joining.
Yes, that's more important than Bob.
No, but the audacity on him. I mean, they're just outright making claims and assertions and how they view what else is going on other flat earth channels.
I think it's important. I think it's important for the debate that he's allowed to do what he does, and we're allowed to critique it.
Don't tell me that the Nathan Oakley show is suffering ballers coming on because that's how bad it's gotten, that they got to attack the other side. That's a bunch of baloney. The Nathan Oakley show is what it is because they get destroyed when they come in here, and they know they can't come in here with nonsense.
All right. Yeah. Well, that's not what I said, but that's a different subject.
I'm covering the whole field, Ken.
Covering the whole field.
On, just one sec. Do a sound check with Adam.
Yeah, I'm here, guys. I'm just joining on the phone, so I sound terrible, to be honest.
That's okay.
Hey, Meekin.
Yeah.
Check Skype. Got to send you a message.
Cool. I'll have a look. I'll distracted by having to do a proper day's work. Shocking. I'll have a look.
Hear what Savage said, Adam? What did you make of it?
What? No, I've not seen this message then, so have I missed something?
No, the message isn't about Savage. Savage basically went in and innocently or seemingly innocently asked Bob a question, but I'm not sure whether it was Trojan or not because he basically sliced off his head, but with a politeness to it. I'm like, go, John.
Oh, I heard John asking some ignorant question, like pretending he was daft yesterday, but I thought they were quite pertinent, really.
Well, he asked whether or not gas molecules will go up in a vacuum chamber, and that forced Bob to say no, they'll go down, because Bob was arguing for everything goes down in a vacuum chamber, no exceptions. So John just went, does gas molecules do that? And he said, yes.
Just play the recording for Adam.
Yeah, go on.
I don't have it. I heard it this morning. Someone had
it. Now.
What? You want it played again?
Yeah, go on, play it.
Right.
It's only about a minute long, but it's brilliant.
This device right here crushes the relative density disequilibrium argument. Absolutely crushes it, because there is nothing that you can claim here where anything is going from a less dense to more dense medium. It's in a vacuum. It's all the same medium, and yet there is still a downward acceleration, and that downward acceleration does change from place to place, and even sometimes in the same place, right?
So Bob, does that, at the risk of sounding stupid, and I'm feeling pretty stupid at the moment, but does when you say everything goes down, do you mean gases as well inside this device?
Even gases will, yes, because if you have helium, and helium is the least dense gas we know, right?
Mm-hmm.
But even helium has to be, if it's going to rise, it has to float up on something, right? Well, if there's nothing to float up on, then what's it going to do? It's going to sit on the bottom.
Sit on the bottom. That's really interesting. I didn't know that. And do they have these sort of devices, bigger devices than these? That, because I'm just thinking about Zach's balls.
That's classic.
So Adam, is he politely trolling?
Did he just say that the gas, the helium in the chamber will go down because there's nothing else?
Yes, that's what he said.
But
Yeah,
that's not.
I think
Bob has joined
that's
the
got to
list.
be a mistake. Because obviously, if you were to put a gas molecule in a vacuum chamber, it would carry on exerting gas behavior, which means it would be free to move in all directions and would generate an exceptionally low pressure within the vacuum chamber. Because
Did he say just helium would go down or helium balloon would go down?
Let me just address chocolate. Chocolate. Yes.
Helium balloon would.
Hold on, Adam. Chocolate. Yes. What has effectively happened is Bob Nodell has tied his flag to Thunderfoot's ship.
Oh no.
Correct.
Oh no. But then, what he said just didn't make sense just now.
Can I just point out that Meekin's given a politician's answer? Because the question that I asked was John being savvy, if want for a better word, with his question, or was it innocent?
I won't be a politician. I can't give you a straight answer because I've not spoken to him in months, any of them. So I don't know. All I would say is probably not. I don't think he would be. If he was trying to undermine it, I think he'd probably do it behind doors. So I think it's just probably an innocent question that's tripped Bob up, if I'm being honest, by the sounds of it, or highlighted the problem or the assumptions that aren't there within using the gravimeter and the bits that were there to validate this claim, because there was obviously that contradiction. So I don't
see my screen.
I asked Nathan a question.
Can you see my screen in the Hangout? Yes or no? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
No.
No.
Can't see the
Is it the one with the gas molecules?
Yeah. Bob's assertion is that the helium will go down. That they'll sit on the bottom.
Hold on, guys. Give me time.
But apparently, because there's nothing else in the chamber that's dense enough to support it, because that's what it sounded like. It didn't sound like what happened in the chamber happened because of electro, whatever the hell. It sounded like you needed some other substance in order to support it. So that kind of goes against what his argument. Am I confused here? I don't know. Help me out.
We're saying there's no high pressure to low pressure circumstance when you introduce helium into a vacuum chamber because there's no other medium in there for it to push upon to go up. Not realizing that the low pressure environment is the environment and the gas is just going to fill it in every single instance. It's not going to go to the bottom. But yes, for Chocolate's benefit, just for a second time, that's precisely the circumstance now. When you have a downward bias, regardless if you're Ken Wheeler, Thunderfoot, or Bob Nodell, you end up in a circumstance where you have to assert that gas goes down, go boom, boom. And that's not gas behaviour. We can debunk this with a kettle.
I think that was actually very intentional and welcome. I mean, Bob knew this was coming and welcomed it. As Bob, when I said earlier that Bob stated that gas does go down, go boom, boom, that is his exact words last night. He stated this using those exact words. He said, for those who don't seem to get this, gas does go down, go boom, boom, and need a little chocolate after. So he actually said that, Nathan.
Can I have a little trimmed out version of that for someone who can be asked to look through it, because I can't. But no, that's the bottom line here. Where Anthony asked earlier, well, where's he going to go? What's the movie can make? Well, it's not rock and a hard place. It's just you're wrong. You're incorrect. Now, I'm not going to berate you like I berated that guy, whatever his name was, Die Slow, because, you know, Bob hasn't come here and lied about this being his ideas and so on and so forth. So, no, but by the same token, you are just wrong, like Thunderfoot's wrong and like Ken Wheeler's wrong. No, we don't have a downward bias. It's debunked by gas.
And salt, apparently.
That's second grade stuff.
Yeah, I would just like to say
I didn't watch much of it, but I didn't like he just did like a 12-year-old experiment. He has a naturally observed phenomenon. He has a viable hypothesis, and he has experiment in which he manipulated the independent variable. That's scientific method. It doesn't matter what the caliber of the experiment is. It's an experiment that proved a alternate hypothesis. I don't understand how you could just poo-poo it and just say, nah, that's crap. But gas will just go down in a vacuum chamber. What the hell, man?
Because he don't have an experiment. So he's got to pull on everybody else's.
Well, obviously Savage...
He still uses that word freely.
Obviously Savage pulled him up on this, but was anybody else pulling him up on this? Who else was there to pull him up on this?
Are you crazy? Cross Bob? Woo!
You see, there was nobody here ever. There's no one ever there that's going to actually pull Bob on anything. Other than Jaron, now and again, I've heard him pull Bob on
that's
stuff.
kind of what I was hinting at. Well, because I know for a fact... Sorry if you're listening to this, Jaron. No good deed goes unpunished. So, Jaron promoted me. Thank you very much. He trimmed out a section with Wiggles where I'm discussing an MIT explanation for gas behaviour in line with second law of thermodynamics. Anyway, Jaron took the section where the guy explains that you have a gas in a volume, and you have a volume that's no gas, that would be a vacuum, and when you remove the barrier, the gas expands in all directions to fill the availability of volume. That's what he explains. Now, Jaron's taken that clip, trimmed it out. Hold on one second, I've got a baby running around.
The gas will fill the available volume.
Exactly. Fill the available volume. Well, this is something that I know Jaron knows. So if Jaron was there, I would hope he would say, well, no, that's not how gas behaves.
But it's actually worse than that, and I'll tell you why. Because Bob actually... Recently, Anthony made a video where he was saying that Bob could put the density theory into is it a Gauss? What do they call them? The Gauss
vomit comet.
No, the Gauss chamber. He was talking about where Anthony was talking about
Faraday cage.
Block out. Sorry, the blocking out electromagnetic waves. Faraday cage, sorry, blocking out electromagnetic waves. And Bob absolutely berated Anthony and called him an idiot and laughed at him. And there was a good amount of really like sticking the knife into Anthony, because Bob said that won't block static electric charge. It'll only block electromagnetic waves or whatever. He said he's used it before because he used to work with communications or something like that. But the problem is that Anthony was trying to prove or disprove Bob's claim. That's Bob's business to do that. Anthony, what he was doing in his video, he was trying to prove or disprove Bob's claim, because Bob is not doing that. If Bob was proving his own claim, there would be no need for Anthony to be making a video. Do you understand what I mean?
Nathan, I've sent you the clip that you want Bob literally saying gas pressure go down, go boom boom. It's about a minute long, but it's timestamped, so if you just click play, it'll play.
One of our experiments that we're coming up with. Yes, in fact, they have a million different kinds of these. Not only do they have the laser interferometer type, but they have them on springs. They have them for specific gravitational forces, and otherwise. Let me play this really quick. Let me get another one here. Hang on.
I think that's past it, Nathan.
Yeah. Let's play this really quick.
Okay, well, you have to tell me what's the timestamp.
49:39. Sorry, that might have come through wrong to you. 49 minutes, 39 seconds from the...
We do know that when a gas loses its electric potential, it slows down so much that it turns into a liquid, like the condensation that forms on a window when it's cold outside. The gases hit the cold window and transfer their potential energy to it.
Yeah, I think you've got this wrong, Anthony.
No, it's now. Press play. It's coming. This is it.
Trying to mediate the temperature.
Okay, now guys, the reason that we included this in here is because there are other people out there that are claiming that gases are not affected by a downward acceleration. While it is true that gas molecules, when you equalize from one tank to another, and you initially get that rush of gas molecules from a stored container into a vacuum, they will continue to bounce around and bounce and bounce and bounce all over the place. Eventually, the laws of conservation of momentum, laws of conservation of energy will take place, and they will not continue bouncing on forever. Eventually, they will slow, and they will succumb to these downward acceleration forces. In other words, guys, gas molecules do go down, go boom, boom. And if you know who I'm talking about there, I mean, and by the way, he's made this. If you're using this as a catchphrase, oh, gas molecules don't go down, go boom, boom. Please don't sound like a preschooler. That's you just denigrate all of us by doing that.
Oh,
Preschooler,
Nah.
after that numpty
Bob
dipshittery
is a
that just came out of
projection
your pie hole?
artist.
What the fuck?
Where were you yesterday, John?
Bro.
Where were you yesterday? 2 hours non-stop of this. A fallacy every minute. A reference to the unnamed group, us, every minute.
I didn't watch
for 2
it.
hours straight.
I didn't watch it. I just heard that. I just popped in here. What in the hell? What the hell was that? The conservation of
just
what?
1 minute of a 2 hour non-stop shit fest like that.
The conservation of energy and the conservation of momentum? The conservation of energy. What, did the gases just appear out of nothing?
Wait, John, did you
What
miss
the hell are you talking about? Who was that?
Bob Nodell.
Is that person? Is somebody in here saying that shit? Who is that?
That was Bob Nodell.
Bob Nodell.
What?
Play it again, Nathan.
Oh my God! You'd fail. You'd fail.
Play it again,
Listen to me.
Sam.
Whoever just said that, you would fail 5th grade general science. You're numpty. What the hell? Please come on here and explain conservation of momentum and conservation of energy, and show how gas molecules rip off their bra and just die and don't move. They lose all their kinetic energy. What the hell? What?
Did you get breakfast, John?
That
No.
idea hasn't dropped down.
No, they do
far
breakfast.
All right, the bottom line here is, yes, Quantum Eraser, we have the same assertion from Thunderfoot as from Bob Nodell. That is to say that gas does indeed go down, go boom boom.
I don't know what to say to this. You have a fundamental misunderstanding of just basic gas laws. Just basic stuff. I'm talking about pre-elementary school. I'm embarrassed for you.
Yeah,
Get your ass on here and explain this shit. I want conservation of momentum. I want the conservation of energy with the little bullshit that he just said. Get your ass on here. Somebody go get him.
Yeah, I agree.
No, John,
Go
you
get 'em,
don't
Arwen.
understand. You don't have the understanding of a 3rd grader if you disagree with him for that. He just said so.
You need to be institutionalized. You tracking with me?
Any of us, John.
It's worse than a baller.
They are ballers.
It's a Bob Earther.
This is why I think Bob's here to deliberately confuse people, because new people coming into the topic listening to that, it sounds plausible. But when you realise that it's wrong, what's Bob's intention? It's like, are you doing this on purpose? Come on.
My prediction is Rachel's going to pull him up on it. You watch.
Bob is a density filter. He filters the dense from the less dense. Because downward bias is for the dense.
I'm sorry. Hello out there. Can you play that one? Sorry, I just popped in here. Can you play that
again,
one more
again.
time?
Okay, give me a minute.
It was from 40.
And can you stop at key parts? You probably know what they are.
49, 42-ish, Nathan.
Gas molecules from a stored container into a vacuum. They will continue to bounce around and bounce and bounce and bounce all over the place. Eventually, the laws of conservation of momentum, laws of conservation of energy will take place, and they will not continue bouncing on forever. Eventually.
Stop. What the hell? What? That is so. I can't. There's not even a response. The laws of conservation of momentum will do what to gas molecules? I'm not
conserve the
getting
momentum, according to him.
Wouldn't they conserve momentum?
God, this is getting really frustrating. Right, clearly someone's talking. Just leave a pause. Think I'll leave 2 seconds and then start, please. Otherwise, it's just going to be convoluted nonsense.
Yeah, it is convoluted nonsense. The whole thing is, I don't know, does he have a physics glossary from 1956 and he's just poking at words and stuff like ballers do? What the hell does conservation of momentum or the conservation of energy? What the hell?
So they don't apply to gases?
If you would have said PETA guidelines, it violates PETA guidelines, it would have had just as much relevance. That's preposterous. What the hell are you talking about? Keep going.
Hold on, guys in G+, go ahead.
No, I just said they don't apply to gas, conservation of momentum, and conservation of energy.
You'll have to play the other one for QE too, Nathan.
Right. Well, what I got stuck up on the most as I was listening live and chatting in the Skype feed with you guys was the part when he had his screen stuck for half an hour on a gravimeter, and he was in that half hour constantly praising how gravimeters measure the downward acceleration, and it's such a proof of a downward bias. So just to give you the level of where he was at during the whole stream.
Eventually they will slow and they will succumb to these downward acceleration forces. In other words, guys, gas molecules do go down, go boom, boom. And
Lord have mercy.
You forgot the last part. You forgot the last part.
Let him go down,
they
go boom,
down,
boom.
go boom, boom, go splash, splash. Idiot.
He didn't go all in like that.
He even pins it on Nathan, so he does know the argument, but he just chose to completely ignore it.
He says Nathan makes us all look bad when he says that.
I don't say it. It's a thunderfoot. My God. So the person asserting gas go down, go boom, boom is Thunderfoot when he pours bouncy balls into a fish tank, and boom! You've got gas behavior with bouncy balls. So that's where that has come from. Thunderfoot asserting the same crap that Bob's asserting. So I'm parroting Thunderfoot, Bob, and he's saying the same nonsense you are. So I'm not asserting that. I'm humiliating PhD clown Thunderfoot. And now I'm going to humiliate you, Bob. Because you're a clown, Bob Nodell. You think gas goes down, go boom, boom, like bouncy balls poured into a fish tank, like Thunderfoot asserts. Well, Bob, I've got news for you, clown shoes. Gas doesn't behave like that. So, like I've got to tell Thunderfoot, and I've got to tell Ken Wheeler, I've now got to tell Bob. My name's Nathan Oakley, and I can debunk Bob Nodell's clown show with a kettle. Gas does not go down, go boom, boom. It won't eventually run out of energy. And in the case of rain, it'll change state to something more dense and fall back down to Earth. but in the case of gases in general, they're not running out of energy and falling down and needing sweeping up. You also don't have helium pooling in chambers, you complete clown. So, if you don't like the sharp end of my tongue and you want to call me those who won't be named, then I'll tell you like it is. You're an idiot. That is not how gas behaves. It does not go down, go boom boom. You are an imbecile, Bob.
Nathan, your gas go down, go boom boom argument is ruined.
Yeah, you're as stupid as Simon Dan if you think I'm making that argument, Bob Nodell. No, a ball-believing clown called PhD Thunderfoot is making the argument that gas go down, go boom, not me. And I humiliate that clown show on an almost weekly basis. He's part of the show. Now, do you want to be part of my show daily when we say gas go down, go boom boom? Because you've literally said it. I paraphrase Thunderfoot to say that. You have actually said it. Now, I do not make the argument that gas goes down. It doesn't. How stupid are you?
I think he knows that.
Right.
I think he means the other way.
No,
You're
no,
saying that it
no,
doesn't
he
go
wasn't
down.
being sarcastic. He was literally declaring it in the moment. So he was being literal. There's no misinterpretation of
No, he's
No.
saying
Bob
Nathan's
knows
wrong
that
for
Nathan
saying
doesn't
that.
believe that. Yeah.
Yeah, to
He knows
believe
that
that
Nathan
gas
doesn't believe
doesn't go down.
Yeah, he knows that Nathan doesn't believe that. But he's just parroting what Nathan is saying. And then basically joining in with Thunderfoot and saying, boom, gas goes down, go boom, boom. He is saying that it does go down, go boom, boom.
Right.
That's what
And he's
Bob is
saying
saying.
Nathan makes us look bad by saying that it doesn't go down and go boom,
Yeah.
boom.
Yeah.
But guys, if I can just add one thing here, you know, hot steam rises, but when it cools, it does start to return, and then gases like sodium hexafluoride do tend to want to go.
Stop.
Shut the hell up.
Solar.
Let me tell you something.
Solar. Hold
Just
on.
shut him up. We'll
Did
get
you
to
just
him in
say-
a second.
Did
Hold
you
on
say,
a second.
sorry, Solar, you think the gas falls down from clouds, do you? It's gas that returns to the ground, is it?
Okay, I see my error.
No worries. So your error being the error being the use of the water cycle. What's going on with this feedback?
Flat Earth Solar, you're on mute. Right? I told you about your mic issues before. It sounds like a busted chainsaw. Right? Fix your mic issues.
Okay,
all right.
But the
Number
issue,
two,
and he's apologized, so it's all good, right? And I'm sure
Yeah,
he'll just
number
keep on
two.
mute until he's just take him off server mute for the now, and just stay on your own local mute unless you're talking, please, Solar, because you're causing feedback issues for some reason. Anyway, your error, thank you for conceding it quickly, was to assert that gas goes down, go boom boom, because rain goes down, go boom boom. Yeah, rain ain't gas now, is it? But thank you for conceding so quickly so we can summarize it concisely.
yeah. So
It's
now,
all
hello. Can you hear me?
yeah,
Breaker,
got-
breaker.
Breaker, take me home, right? If anyone follows this, listen closely out here, pretender clown flat earthers. If you're going to follow this, you're in direct violation of Boyle's gas law, Charles' law, Gay-Lussac's law, Avogadro's law, part of Dalton's law, and the second law of thermodynamics. Just so you know, okay? So start parroting this stuff. You're going to get your asses handed to you. It's going to be in a sling. Quick. Thanks.
John, the problem is they're all Ken Wheeler followers. They're following Ken Wheeler.
Unfortunately, John, there is a lot of people out there who have bought into it, who actually do believe that the ground has a constant negative and the sky is a constant positive charge without ever proving it or finding out if it was ever proven.
Feel free to respond, QE, but I've got a problem with that, Brian. Go ahead, QE.
How long ago did I tell you the number one threat to flat earthers? How long ago did I tell you this? I posted it a number of places. It has to be greater than 2.5 years ago. Who did I say was the greatest threat to flat earth?
Globe earthers.
Flat earthers.
Let's see if he's right. Globe earthers?
No, all the flat earthers.
Pretender clown flat earthers.
Oh, well, that's a surprise.
I
to me.
did. That's one, but
Really?
there was one behind those pretender clown flat earthers. Who was it?
Ken Wheeler.
Ken Wheeler.
It was Arwen. It was
Yeah, I
Arwen.
know.
The It was Arwen. The tattooed Jabba the Hutt, Uncle Fester, the Platonic monist, are your very own Ken Wheeler. And guess who just popped up?
Right.
Uh-huh.
No, that's wrong. Sorry, do you want to qualify this in percentage terms of how many people, the followers of Ken Wheeler, we must be deeply concerned about? How many people are we talking about compared to the Western world and the globe belief?
On which side?
QE's just put this forward in a very dogged way, that the biggest problem we have is other electric universe believers. I think I'm going to argue ghost believers have got a bigger impact.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but
no,
I'm just telling you.
Oh, that's
I'm not saying I told you so.
That's a quick turnaround. My God.
Well, I don't agree. I think
thanks for rumpusing me.
Yeah, well, you've got a lot of supporting teams.
I'd like to remind everybody that Ken Wheeler is a baller. Just saying.
Yeah, that's true.
Can we play for QE the first clip? He didn't hear that one.
We can, but hold on. I've just got him to go complete a 180, and now we want a clip. What, you having me on?
Yes, yes, I want a clip.
My God, you've got some support, QE.
Moment.
God.
Yeah.
No, but
So-
QE is right. Ken Wheeler is a threat to the intellectual integrity of the scene, as a lot of people get caught up in the dream and the structures, and they discard the lack of empiricism.
A lot of people. Give me in percentages. Oh, why am I doing that with you? God, how is Arwin just taking this heat from you? What's going on?
Why'd you stop?
I'm very confused. My panel's
Why'd you
confusing
stop
me.
my white knighting? Come on, play the clip.
Can't take the heat. Get out of the kitchen.
The heat was on QE for about 5 seconds till you all saved him. Right,
By the
so
way,
ballers.
because
I'm going to try again.
QE is asked
Be
the
my last
question, or
attempt.
QE goes to throw.
He needed saving.
He's being saved. He's being saved. So I would argue, QE, that farce aside, that the ball Earth and the general Western worldview that we're on a sphere flying through a vacuum is the direct opposition that we need to actually worry about. But you're saying no, Ken Wheeler and Bob Nodell. I don't know if I agree with you there.
I didn't say worry about it.
No,
I just said the
support
greatest
that.
threat to flat earthers.
Direct threat to flat Earth. You think the biggest threat I face is a flat earther?
Not
Okay.
motivation, Tom.
Quick straw poll. Got quite a few people on the panel. Hands up. And we're a quite focused group here. Who's got a relative that's an electric universe believer? Go.
Nope.
I do.
What's the question?
I do.
I think it's about 5 or 6 straw man fallacies in a row. What's
I
the
don't
question?
think so. So, as a flat earther, I go out into the great wide world of reality, and my biggest problem as a flat earther is I might face a Ken Wheeler supporter. I don't think so.
No, but
No,
why
no,
add
no,
to
no.
the problem?
No.
Hold on, Neil. You've had your try to save this. I don't mind.
Yeah.
QE's
Yeah.
sounding confident at the moment. Go ahead, QE.
Yeah, my point is the biggest threat to flat Earth. Now, not flat earthers, not bodily harm to flat earthers. No, to flat Earth. That is the concept of flat Earth. The biggest threat to that was pretender clown flat earthers in general, and a small percentage parroting the tattooed Jabba the Hutt, Uncle Fester, platonic monist, Ken Wheeler.
Okay, I've spotted a couple of reification fallacies. What do you mean by concept?
The flat Earth concept.
What does
The
that
flat
mean?
Earth. You know,
What does
the
that mean?
concept behind flat earthers. Or are you gonna rumpus me?
Arwin, can you mute?
What? Oh, sorry.
Earth to DJ, can you play that?
Go ahead.
clip?
I don't.
Oh, perfect.
Play that
Yeah.
clip.
So, what do you mean by concept?
Can I say something in a minute?
Hold on. You just described something that sounded societal to me. What do you mean by concept?
Yeah, the flat Earth concept. The concept behind not individual flat earthers, those as a whole.
That's a societal thing, then.
A societal thing. I don't think I ever
Like
thought
a
of it
group,
as
like a group of
societal.
people, like a group. Not it's
Flat Earth
Yeah,
Society.
there's certain
nothing.
people. Holy shit!
I'm gonna. Can I run a poll, Nathan? A live
Can
poll?
you just play the clip?
No.
Can you run that
I have
clip?
something to
No,
say.
no. Stop
I'm sitting
inserting
pretty
your
here. I
shit.
don't mind the rumpusing in this scenario. It's quite amusing. What do you mean by? Earth as a plane's not a concept. That's not a concept that I have to suddenly envisage. It's just the obvious and observable nature of my reality. When you're describing it as like a group of people and the thoughts and feelings of those people as a group and their understandings, that's like what I'm describing as a societal thing or a group thing. And
okay, I see what you're saying. Yep. I'm not appealing to any feelings though.
So what's your concern? What I'm trying to eke out here is why the people around me, I've got to be honest, I don't give a toss about this. I've said it so many times in the last 3-4 days. I'm running out of time for different ways of paraphrasing. I don't care. But you all do. So much so that only 5 minutes ago, you were more than happy to put your stamp on this is the biggest concern to flat earthers. If I'm paraphrasing incorrectly, feel free to correct me. But I don't agree. And I've given my reasons why. But I want you to now sell it to me. Why should I be concerned? Sell this concern to me, because I couldn't give a shit.
You sold it to yourself. I will.
Oh my God! They just won't.
Are your names John?
I didn't know he was
out loud.
I didn't know he was on the QE. Sorry.
He set the panel.
No, I didn't.
All right, I misheard. Play the clip now.
Why is that? Well, I could throw this any one of your direction. That's what's baiting me. You're trying to bait me to throw this exact question your way, and I'm not. I'm sticking with QE. I want you to sell this to me. The concern that you were so pumped up to put out to my audience, I don't mirror, and I want to know. I want you to sell it. Sell it to me.
Yeah, I don't think it's a threat. It's not a threat to me as a flat earther. I find it hilarious because it's moronic. His, how would you say, teachings I can defeat those in my sleep. You don't even know half of the ones that he said that's not connected to flat earth, but we won't go down that road. His influence on the upper echelon of flat earthers and impressionable flat earthers, like just coming in, it's a threat in the sense that you can get different factions going off in different directions away from the actual truth of the matter, is what I'm trying to say.
Let's be clear. With flat earthers, we need to be united.
I don't want to go so far as to say united, but when you see what we're trying to fight, more or less, and how we got in this position in the first place, is by what? By pseudoscience pretender clowns offering the effects that they see by offering their trumped up causes that created in their minds, right? It's a just so story. And then they slap science on it. This is just about the same thing, but with flat earthers taking the place of the ball tarts. They're doing the same thing. If you take a step back and look at it and say, you follow? Are you guys following me?
Yeah, I'm following you.
Yes, let me short it in 3 words. Pseudoscience, dead end, gatekeeper.
When can I say something, Nathan?
Go ahead.
Well, John, let me just agree with John. All of that
Try and retain some control so we can hear what's being said, or will you just talk constantly? Yes, Brian, next. Go ahead.
Thank you, Nathan. This is the problem. This is the danger that I think that has to be addressed. We have already defeated the ballers. It's just a case of keep relaying the arguments, keep pointing out all the flaws. That's all it is. And there's loads and loads of people, flat out in general, is growing every day. And even people who follow Bob Nodell and Ken Wheeler and what they're pushing, they're still fighting the ballers. But the problem is, in 20 years down the line, what will happen is, if we allow this weed to start to grow, it will be a massive weed. We have to nip it in the bud, because we'll have people on our own side bringing in people, telling them a heap of nonsense that isn't true, that isn't backed up by anything, and it's just back. We're trying to get out from underneath that rock of rubbish and pseudoscience, and we're just going to put ourselves back in underneath it again. It's just going to be a different rock, but we're still back underneath a rock.
Okay, good.
We have to deal with it.
You're echoing QE sentiment. Sleeping Warrior, feel free to do the same. You're doing well. You're selling it well.
I just want to say that all of that conversation with Bob all started off with Bob saying that this works within the confines of his flat Earth model. So he's got to get out of saying, well, it's all in my model. But he's also got the ability to say, well, it works in his model, but he's been then reifying. So like the bit that John missed was that this is all within Bob's own flat Earth model.
Okay, thank you.
How is that relevant to what?
You can add more. Yeah, I'd like to actually respond to you also. Thank you.
So it's relevant.
Yeah,
it's relevant to the point that John was making, that we've got the problem of everybody making their own models.
I won't respond to you, QE. We'll just have the panel indefinitely. Thank you, panel. I'll actually respond to you now, QE. Yeah, you seem to have got the panel all on the same side, and they're all singing the same hymn sheet that you've just written out there, QE. However, you just expanded on the same thing and made it more societal and more structural, and your concerns about the way that society will structure itself or restructure itself, and your attack of that potential that might come from this tiny minority that apparently we all need to be concerned about. So while you're all concerning yourselves with this structural hierarchy that may develop as a result of this one individual, and your expressed concerns start with you saying, well, me as an individual, I know it's all nonsense, but the group of people beneath you in this hierarchy might not get it, so you better whip them into shape. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know about whipping them into shape. I'd have to think about it. But probably a better phrase for that. Not whip them into shape. I mean, just don't allow. Listen, I'm here to expose lies, specifically pseudoscientific lies, right? So if they're part of that, then they're in my radar range. How about that?
All right, do you want to carry on what you were about to say? Yeah. You won't allow...
Say again?
You started saying something and then changed your tone. You went, I won't allow...
Did I say I won't allow?
Yeah,
did
you
that come
did,
out
yeah,
of my
yeah.
mouth? I object.
Me too. The problem is, and I understand it, your problem, this issue, and it's being put on Bob unfairly, is one that I tried to explain this to Anthony and Chocolate earlier. Right, go and watch Thrice 8 Hermes' description of men and their models. People like to follow people, and they like to involve themselves in this structure you're describing, and your concerns about the reordering of that societal structure with the hierarchies, if I could say it, therein. Well, I don't care. That's what people do. You think when we figure out that we're not on a spinning ball, which the Western world as a majority do still think, that someone somewhere is not going to try and do what Bob's doing? Yeah. But for the time being, he's a tiny little fish in a tiny little pond that exists on an island surrounded by an enormous ocean of globe heads. So, to be honest, as much as you're all really concerned about this, and preemptively, I get it, you've sold it me well. I understand why your concerns of how a hierarchical structure could develop around this complete nonsense based on one man and his models. But the QE that I like and can get behind a lot more is the one that educates people in understanding this for themselves, because then they don't find themselves wandering into these structural, societal things that will develop anyway, is what I'm driving at. And that's for me, it's for a different group of people to assess and turns into a political forum, which I don't see this as. There you go, that's my piece over. Feel free to have at it.
I'm looking at it. Let me just follow up before I get some breakfast. I'm trying to look at this from an outside perspective, like somebody new coming into the topic and taking a look at the flat Earth landscape and comparing it to their previous beliefs of globetardia. And I'm just saying it would be quite confusing to them. Look, if they can critically think, they're going to get through it, right? But that surface, how would you want to say, the surface texture would be some people might turn away from that and I don't want to say that to have everyone on the same sheet of music, something like that, but at least it's got to be somewhat coherent.
Mm-hmm.
You follow what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. Anthony, you mentioned that sometimes some people have got a glaring disclaimer, they drop it in early. What were you saying about people having critical thought? Can you just expand on that bit? The bit you dropped in real early.
People having critical thought? What do you mean?
I'm asking QE. He dropped in early that, on the proviso that people have critical thought. And is that the case?
In general,
Yeah, in
not so
general.
much.
Not so
my
much
experience.
in general, though. So therefore, no matter what you do, no matter how much you fight this battle, or put it on Bob's doorstep, when I don't think that's necessary. As much as I've had my differences,
I'm not doing that.
You're not. I'm not putting that on you. You've come in now, and I'm not. I'm not doing it either. I've just got involved and given Bob a taste of my tongue after hearing what I've heard. But by the same token, that minor blood boil has now descended into nothing again, and now couldn't give a toss again. It's just a minor, insignificant detail in the big scheme of people believing in the globe and the hierarchical structures that will develop, regardless of what we do or what we expose here in terms of that particular lie, won't change.
Right.
But that's for a debate on a political forum. I'm just repeating myself now. Sleeping Warrior, did you want to add something?
I'd like to add something.
Whoever.
Yep.
Sleeping Warrior was trying to get away first.
Let me say my bit first, because obviously when I said my last bit about Bob coming in and making all this conversation was based on Bob making his model, and Arwin said, so what? Well, the reason why so what needs to be answered is because John's point was that people coming in making their own models and reifying their own models into existence, like Jabba the Hutt or Bob in this instance, we've got to be careful about them doing that. So I was pointing out that Bob's doing that, he's creating his own model, and Arwin didn't spot the connection.
Yes,
Why
I
am I
did.
wor- why should we
I can barely get
worried
3
about
words in.
reification fast?
Stop. You're wrong. You can do whatever the hell he likes. Bob, do whatever you like.
No, don't reify models into existence.
I was gonna say the same thing.
Do whatever you like.
Stop him, Tony. You can't stop him.
Check out the little Hitlers on my
Hello?
panel. Check out the little Hitlers.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead, Eli.
Yeah, you can't go into someone's echo chamber. I mean, home, hijack their women and people, underlings or whatever, and tell them what to do. You can't do that. Like, I keep saying that. Like,
exactly.
What Nathan is saying, like, I get what you guys are saying. There's some dude that's out there that's, preaching pseudoscience, right? But you're also saying we have to do something. We're already doing that. But we are already doing what we're supposed to be doing. By exposing pseudoscience. QE's been doing master scientific method courses on his channel for the last, I don't know how long. We are doing what we're supposed to be doing.
I agree.
Totally agree. That's the bit. That's why I said that's the QE I like to get behind. The non-politicized QE that's teaching people how to do this of their own volition. And for me, you could say, oh, he was one of those that didn't have critical thought because I didn't get it straight away when watching it on Kthex's channel 3 years ago. Took 10 attempts. Well, you bash something over the head long enough, it'll eventually go in. Well, that is a testament to understanding the arguments and recognizing how that affects my day-to-day life. Now, for the lazy man, it's much easier to just follow another guy with a model. Now, nothing I can do about that, I'm afraid.
I have to say, and I hate to say this, Nathan, but you're being extremely naive. Because you refer to Bob Nodell and the Electric Universe people as the minority. They're not. We are the minority, and that's the problem.
Okay. So what you're saying is
it's not a problem though, because when you're in the right, nothing can stop you.
No disrespect.
The inability from people
fair
to
enough.
see
Nice
right.
sentiment, Arwin. Let Brian carry on though. I get your sentiment, Arwin, and I agree. But go ahead. I totally agree, Arwin, by the way. Go ahead, Brian.
Nathan, probably one of the people I respect the most out of everyone I ever met. But on this issue, although you're very wise and you're sticking with the present moment, you're being naive if you think they're the minority, because they're not. We are. And that's why they're a threat.
Yeah.
Because they're spewing nonsense.
You don't have to sugarcoat it. I don't need it in a shit sandwich. Just get why. Why am I wrong?
Because they have a bigger voice than us. And they're going to continue to have, if they draw in more people, especially newer people coming in, they're going to continue to have a bigger and much bigger voice than us. We'll be the ones who will be drowned out. We'll get to the point where, am I speaking, and Arwin, can you leave me speak? It'll get to the point where they will be drowning us out. They'll be pressing the mute button on us because they won't want to hear it, and they'll be in a position, if we're not careful, to be able to do that. Just like the ball out has done.
Yeah, I summarised this earlier. I said you're doing it preemptively. And while I could totally agree with you, your analogy would be akin to a race where you've got lots of different cars on the track. And, well, our competitor is still the guy in the car that's at the back of the pack because we're behind him. So therefore, Electric Universe sits behind us and is a race to get to the end line. Nah, I don't see it that way. I see it as I've got this big sword of truth, and it's big enough and ugly enough to chop the head off anyone that doesn't have this sword. And that's everyone else on the racetrack in your analogy. So do I need to worry about the guy who's pondering around the back when I can stroll to the front and destroy everything? No, I don't.
And meanwhile, I can simply walk down to the Party City store, pick up a helium balloon, and walk around and have anybody who wants to, whether it's a glober or a flat earther, tell me how gas goes down, go boom boom, while I'm holding my helium balloon that's trying to go up.
This is full volume. I'll speak. No.
Full volume, is it?
I think you're all missing what Brian is saying.
Hold on a second.
Sorry,
Sorry, 10th man, to do this to you. I know you've been trying to get a word in for ages. Danny Tastic, did you want to add something? Clearly not. Go ahead, 10th man.
Yeah. Your little outro, which I believe you're going to do it, when you went on that nice little flow and included Bob with Thunderfoot and Ken Wheeler. I'm sure you're going to cut that out. That's all we're saying. We're not saying anything more than that.
Yeah. The earth is round. You guys know that.
Excuse me. I'm talking, whoever this guy is. The truth is the key. And as long as we're talking the truth, that's all Brian is saying. That's all I'm saying. But communism didn't start with 100 million people. It started with one guy. And look what happened. And now you're looking at China, you're looking at China having capitalistic points of view for the elite and communism for all their people because it didn't work. How many billionaires does China have? Communism doesn't allow for billionaires, and yet they have it. So when I look at the things that have grown from a little seed and become what they become, we better talk against it with truth and just keep talking against it, is what Brian and I are saying. And recognize that as long as we do that, the threat is diminished because there's always truth against the lie. That's all.
Go on, Eli.
Unfortunately, we can't use science. Science isn't the proper tool for killing ideas. So what do you suggest we do? Because I said we would have to be nothing short of kicking in their door. And like, what do we do if not science?
I'm not.
Right?
I didn't even listen to the show. Eli, I didn't.
No, don't say no, because I get your sentiment, but you're saying something has to be done about it. Okay, science can't be done other than educating people on what science is versus what pseudoscience is, which is what we do. But when it comes to the growing believers in a priest, what do we do about that? What
I'm not
method
even
do we
talking
employ?
about that, Eli. I'm not even talking about how you're taking it.
Nothing.
Arwen, stay out of this, Arwen. Eli, I'm not talking about controlling people. I'm just saying you have to put a stand with the truth and keep telling the truth. That's all I'm saying. I'm not trying to go take their followers. I'm not even thinking in those terms. Those who have ears will hear. Eyes will see. The rest, it won't matter because they don't care.
Well,
what we're doing is what we're doing, and I'm just saying let's keep doing it. But don't conflate the two with a societal image versus this other image. Let's just keep doing what we're doing, and those who are going to listen, and have eyes to see will see it. But let's not take the foot off the pedal. And every time I see a Thunderfoot video from Nathan, now Bob's going to be included in it, and that's all I'm asking for, to treat that lie the same way.
The worst that can happen,
Okay,
if
so I guess I'm asking Brian then, because Brian seems to be worried about his bigger audience. So I guess I'm addressing Brian.
I'll give an actual real world example. There's a man called that was called Charles K. Johnson. He was a flat earther like us many years ago, back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, into the very early 2000s. He died in 2001. If you look online, you can find hardly nothing about him. Yet he done 1,000 interviews between television and radio and different things. It's very hard to find anything about the guy. But when you press on Google, when you look for Flat Earth, the very first thing comes up is Flat Earth Society. He fought tooth and nail against them people. He knew they were a load of nonsense. He knew they were fake and false. And because he wasn't able to deal with them, he didn't have the internet, he did take them serious. But now when you press on Flat Earth, he's not what comes up. You get Flat Earth Society. He wasn't much different than us. He was basically the same, not really any different. And the man that came before him. So what's happening is, if we're not careful, we'll be Charles K. Johnson. That's the problem. And if you don't take that serious, then you will regret it in years to come.
Hold on, Eli. Hold on, Brian. Hold on. Go ahead, Arwin.
This is all, seriously, you're all worrying about nothing. I'm sticking to what 10th Man said, and that is, if you speak the truth, yeah, all of them, 99% of flat earthers will say, they're stupid Nathan and panel. They were not going along with the downward bias. And then, inevitably, the truth will at some point sink in, with some quicker than with others, and they'll just all feel like fools for falling for another NASA, right? And then we're left with, yeah, we were right all along. You just got to wait out the mistake to happen.
No, I'm not waiting out for them. I don't care if they come to the conclusion, and in this ideal world with violins playing, they come back and go, you were right all along. That never happens either. But I don't give a shit either way. If they want to believe in a downward bias, I'll just stick here with my kettle, watching Chocolate walk around with this helium balloon, and Anthony with his egg, and we'll just go, yeah, whatever. Some people are just thick. They think gas go down, go boom, boom.
Nathan, I'm not saying that they will all come to us and kneel for us and say that we were right. They will know they are right. That is all that they will know. That's all that matters. We don't have to have tribute for holding the line. They will just know, and that is all that matters.
Indeed. Sentiment.
Somebody else wanted to say something.
Silent Zero, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to say, if you don't have an audience or nobody's listening, who are you gonna tell that truth to?
Exactly, Silent Zero. That's why it's very important that you all share the show on Facebook and Twitter.
Yeah.
I concur, Silent Zero.
Brian?
So you want a real world example of what's going to be like, and it doesn't matter as long as we do what's right, because it's going to be this way anyway. Is you can have denominations of flat earth, just like you have denominations of different religious belief systems.
Correct, Kent. Perfect.
The majority of people will always go out and look for fallacies to believe in. It's just a natural truth. It always happens in every
People
era.
will look for other followers and other models to believe in. That's just how it is.
Am I crazy? But did somebody earlier say that the Earth is round? Did I hear that, or am I crazy?
Yeah, he did. But
in the middle of this discussion,
I don't know if he's still here. I server muted him because he was he was just interjecting over the top when I invited him to do that earlier. So I stuck him on server mute because he interrupted going Earth's round over the top of 10th Man.
Well, speaking of 10th Man, is Kiwi here, and are we ever going to play that clip?
Go ahead, whoever that is.
Sorry, guys. It's me, truth be told. Look, I just want to say something. For me, it's a personal journey. I came into this reality on my own, and I don't side with not this side nor that side. I go and watch their videos. I take the information. I go read up on it, and I test it for myself if I can. If somebody else don't, that's on them. You know what I mean? Same with this side. I've listened to what the guys say. I read up on it and I go test it for myself. So for me, it's a personal journey is what I've come into believing and understanding, is that I see the earth is flat. And other than that, it's just my personal journey in this reality. And yeah, that's what I take from all of this.
Perfect. With that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. Of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing, and all that good stuff. Also, below this video, there is a link to get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!